Hey guys, welcome to part 4 of What If Naruto Was Neglected Heir of Uzumaki Clan. If you enjoy the video then like, share and subscribe as it inspires me to make more such videos. So let's get started. Chapter 10. Kumigakure. A looked at the man who had failed him with a stern expression on his face. He was still not going to yield to Konoha's demands. It was not like they were going to do anything that would incite war. They were weak people who were afraid to take up arms and march into the battleground. Perhaps they have just gotten enough of all the wars. The Hidden Leaf has always been a major player in the past 3 wars, and this one ended because they took an effort. Well, it was safe to say it had ended because Uegakure feared Minato's power. That was a power that did not frighten the Yondaime Reikage. He was also fast, and he could match Minato's speed. This was why he was willing to make this choice. He just hoped that Konoha did not go public with that happened though. If the Leaf did something like that, it would spell a major political backlash that would not be good for Kumigakure, and he would get some stern words from the feudal lord. Looking at Mikado, the Reikage spoke. "I am giving you an opportunity to redeem yourself," said in a hardened tone. "I received intelligence suggesting that Minato's son has been spotted outside the village doing missions. You are going into the fire country, and one of my Anbu will lead you. You will be given information on how to go about things." The Reikage had thought that putting the redhead into the bingo book would incite some battle-loving people and the money-loving nins to go after the redhead, but nothing had happened. This of course led to this new plan he was cooking up. He didn't want the boy to be killed, he just wanted to see if he was strong, and if he was showing signs of knowing the Hiraishin. 1 was okay for him, but 2 were not, and he was not about to have someone who would grow to hate his village walk around the elemental nations freely. He recognized that the redhead might hold some grudge against his village due to what Mikado said, and if this happens to be true, he would have to see if the redhead would be a threat. If yes, then he would make plans to have the boy killed before he can even do anything. Sometimes problems had to be solved before they start causing damages. The Yondaime Reikage loved this village too much to allow anyone who could threaten its existence to continue living. He was a protector of Kumigakure, and he would do everything in his power in order to do so. He was also not going to tell Mikado that he was suspecting Naruto to be the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi. There was no information coming from the Hidden Leaf that suggested so. Everything up to so far was just a guess. It was ridiculous that the Hidden Leaf has managed to keep the Jinchuriki a secret. Even though the village has not used the power of the Bajoa in the past wars, he didn't think they would do so if a war does get a hold of the elemental nations. Mikado smiled after the Reikage had spoken. Finally, he could get payback for the humiliation that he faced in the hands of that brat. He could not walk with his head held high because that brat had caught him off guard, and now he was a laughingstock amongst his peers. He would prove his worth, and make sure that his regains his honor. "You want me to kill the brat, or bring him back to you?" The Yondaime Reikage snorted, seeing the gleam in Mikado's eyes. "No," he said. "I didn't put him in the bingo book so that I can have his head. He is just a mere brat, and no, you're not going to kill him. I want you to test him and push him to his limits, and see what he will do. Once you're done, return to the village with the report." Mikado frowned slightly, but nodded at the orders of the Reikage. He was not going to make an argument when the man had been merciful in his failure. This was his chance to make up for his failure, and he would not screw it up. He was disappointed nevertheless. He had even thought of seeing the redhead cry in pain with his right hand over his throat. "When should I depart?" "Now," said calmly. "Head towards the fire country borders. Once you reach there, an Anbu will find you. Leave now." "Hi," Mikado said as he stood up. "I will not fail you, Reikage-sama." "I expect nothing less," the Yondaime Reikage said. "Do remember that if Konoha shinobi find you in the fire country, they will attack you. You have also been put in their bingo books, and they have put a bounty on your head. If you fool around, you will die." That was something that Mikado didn't know. He knew that Konoha had wanted his head, but he didn't think that they would react in this way after the Raikage refused to give them his head. This was basically a suicide mission, and he could not do it alone. He needed help, and he would get his help. Hadn't said he couldn't get someone to help him. With the right price he could get someone to assist him and work as a shield to protect him if he ends up running into fearsome Konoha shinobi or if the Anbu spot him. If he is seen by Anbu, it would prove to be a problem. But he still had to do this. He had to succeed, otherwise there was no reason to continue living. 2 days later, somewhere in the Fire Country, Naruto was walking in a leisurely place, walking on the right side of the client they were guarding. They were coming from the Hidden Leaf, going to Takumi in the Land of Rivers. This was his 5th mission outside of Konoha, and it was a C-ranked mission with the potential to become A- rank. They had completed 1 C-ranked mission and 3 B-ranked missions. There had been nothing that exceeded that B rank. The missions posed some difficulty, but nothing too troublesome that would push the Hokage into thinking they needed to be kept away from the lines of fire. "Sensei," Natsumura called out to his sensei as the group slowly edged closer to the borders of the river country. Mahiro turned his attention towards the rational and logical member of his team. It wasn't to say that Naruto and Tetsu were idiots, well, the latter wasn't that smart. Sometimes Mahiro snorted at the things that came from the genin's mouth. Some of the things were just ridiculous. Naruto was well. Naruto. The redhead didn't trouble himself with working up strategies and involving himself in many conversations, unless his opinion was required. Yet there was no doubt in the redhead's skills as a shinobi though. He wouldn't deny that the boy was capable, and that they had relied on him to be decisive when things were not going according to plan. Even so, Mahiro would never leave the redhead in charge of the team. Naruto was irresponsible at times. Natsumura was suited for the role in leadership, which is why he was number 2. I have been hearing that Naruto-san is going to participate in the Chunin exams that are going to be held in Kumagakure. Granted, we are teammates. Does this mean that our team is going to enter the exams as well? Natsu asked. As far as I am concerned, unless granted special permission by a Kage, one must enter the exams with a team. Whether you participate on the games or not will depend on me, Mahiro said calmly. I will have to assess whether you're ready for the exams or not. During those exams, I will not be there, you will be alone. I have to consider that when making a decision. You're still fresh genins, anything can happen. Personally, I don't think we are ready, Natsumura said, but before he could add anything he was interrupted by Tetsu. Speak for yourself, Natsu, the boy said firmly. I think I am ready. We have been doing some difficult missions, and have been succeeding. No one has faced any life-threatening situation. We have so far been able to hold our own. I say we enter the exams. Natsu shook his head. You fail that realize that our success has been largely owed to Sensei and Naruto-san. Most of the time, we are just passengers in this team. When in the exams, we may have to face individual challenges. Given your mental limits, you wouldn't survive. Are you calling me stupid? Tetsu demanded with a glare. Why aren't you pointing the finger at him? Naruto isn't stupid. Have you even seen him making reckless decisions as you? Natsumura responded coolly. Naruto alone is ready. There can be no doubt about that, but the rest of us are not. What will happen then? I don't know, Mahiro responded calmly. The Hokage will make a decision on what to do, but I have not made any final decision on anything. Once we complete one more mission, I will make a decision. Don't you have any input, young Naruto? The client asked, a bit amused by the bickering that had just occurred between Natsumura and Tetsu. He didn't get to see what really happened with team dynamics and how shinobi acted in missions. To see them acting like this was something refreshing. There isn't a need for me to add anything, Naruto responded calmly. I meant about the Chunin exams. Well, I cannot miss this one chance. I know for sure I will be going. Teams may be different, but I will go. Tetsu nodded. He has been genin for more or less 5 years. I'd say that is about a record for someone who graduated tied first at his class, the boy said in mild amusement. I suddenly don't feel so bad even if we do miss this round. I'll still become Chunin far faster than you did, coming from being genin, I mean. The client looked at Naruto to see if there would be a response, but there was none, not even a slight twitch. It was almost as if he hadn't heard what had been said. Obviously, Tetsu was mocking the redhead, and yet he didn't get the response he was looking for. That only seemed to make Tetsu angry. That attitude of yours annoys me, the genin growled. You should stand up more and fight for yourself like a man. Naruto turned his eyes to look at the genin who was walking on the other side. He just shook his head and looked away. I think he means fighting is through the fists, not by words. You're more likely just blubbering this and that, the client said, amused. That isn't nice. Naruto just shrugged. Some things are not word minus. Natsu raised his right hand, motioning everyone to stop. He looked around for a moment before kneeling down the ground. Fresh footsteps. Whoever walked through here did not pass too long ago. If we are to avoid them, it is best we increase our pace. Having served with military police, Naruto had learned that such things needed to be investigated, but that was not his job here and the mission came first before anything. He didn't like failure anyway. He wouldn't do anything to risk the mission. Still, his thoughts didn't really matter here. He was not the team leader. He was only expected to follow orders. Where are they heading? Mahiro asked. 3 o'clock, Natsu said, pointing towards his right hand. Naruto, Mahiro said. Create a clone and send it to see what it is. We will have to get away from here as fast as we can, the man said firmly. Naruto nodded and did as instructed. All right, Mahiro said. You don't have a problem with me carrying you, right? I know it'd be uncomfortable and embarrassing, but this is the only option I have if we are to make some good distance with this place. I can live it, the client said. Excellent, Mahiro said, picking up the client. He took the lead. Let's go. The group took the trees as they hopped through the forest. They ran for about an hour without rest. Along the way, Naruto received the memories of his clone, but he did not say anything until his Jonin sensei called for them to stop. Nothing would have changed if he had said anything, and there wouldn't have been proper communication if they had talked while hopping through the trees. After they landed on the ground, taking a few moments to breathe, Naruto spoke. Bandits, there are around 10 of them. From what I was able to gather, they are heading towards Sound. They have about 20 victims with them. Granted, the victims are civilians, the suspects won't be moving that quickly. Mahiro nodded and took out his map. After a few moments he spoke. We are about 25 to 30 minutes away from the borders of the river country. Our responsibility is to get our client into the borders of the river country, and from the information Hokage-sama gave us, we will meet shinobi from Takagakure. I thought we would reach Takami and rest there for the night before heading back to Konoha during day. But we will have to stop at the borders. But only if we meet the people we are supposed to meet. Will we be running or walking? Natsu asked. We will have to run, Mahiro said. We will rest once we make it to the borders. We will take time to rest there, and we will have to run once again. If we do find the bandits when we return, we will rest once more before we engage them. We must first complete the mission. With everything clear, they took the ground instead of the trees and rushed towards the borders of the land of rivers. The client smiled inwardly as the wind hit his face, being carried. It was a bit uncomfortable, but he was not complaining. He was going to get to his home country safely, and he could not blame these shinobi for rushing things as they wanted to do something good. There had been a general idea that shinobi were people who did not care about what was right and wrong when doing their missions. But this was something that was good, to see shinobi willing to fight off bandits. There was no doubt that the people with the bandits were possibly women and children who were going to be used. There was the saying that the mission came first before anything. He had been in the presence of shinobi from other villages, and they were willing to turn a blind eye on what was wrong just so they could continue with their mission. With this, he had little doubt that he had made the right choice in trusting the Yondaime Hokage. If his shinobi were willing to uphold the moral responsibility, then Konoha was a good village. The group came to halt after entering the borders of the Land of Rivers. Their client had told them of the directions they ought to take, and with following his instructions, they met up with a group of shinobi. Both Tetsu and Natsu slumped down the ground, breathing heavily. Naruto showed no such strains. Mahiro looked at the client, then at the shinobi that were in front of them. Allies? The man nodded. Mizu, he called lightly, and one of the shinobis walked up to the group. They were waiting in the wings in case your group was coming late. With things happening around the fire country, one can never be too safe, he said, taking out a scroll from his backpack. He handled his brush and started to write on the scroll that was on Mizu's back. Once he was done, he handed the scroll to Mahiro. Hand this to the Hokage. He thanked them for their service and disappeared along with the shinobi of Tanigakure. Team Mahiro rested for about an hour before they headed back into the fire country. They made their way through the forest, rushing towards the direction the bandits had taken. It was a travel about 2 hours, and they had to do some search before they were finally able to locate the resting suspects, as Naruto would call them. Rest came in first before they could do anything. Naruto questioned whether he truly cared for the lives he was going to save. Perhaps he upheld the moral responsibility because of the principles he was forced to follow in military police force. Crime was unacceptable. No member of society had to turn a blind eye on it. Even though Naruto often turned a blind eye on many things, crime could not be offered the same treatment. Murderers, rapists, while men who did unspeakable things to others were in police's eyes scums who needed to be taken away from society. He had been doing that in the streets of the Hidden Leaf. He had spent at least 4 years applying those principles in his daily life. His feelings didn't matter, it had simply become a way of life. Mahiro looked at Naruto. They had all the information they needed, and what they had to do now was execute their side mission. He wasn't really sure how things would go about in Konoha, but there was a moral responsibility he had always attempted to uphold with everything he had, and to install it in his team was the way to go. They had not done something like this, but they could not avoid this matter. The fire country was their home, and racing criminals within the borders of their country was their job. It is likely that they will use their captives as shield, Mahiro said, looking at Naruto. The redhead was the one who was used to working in such conditions when they had civilians in the line. It would be pointless if the people they were trying to save would end up killed. That is a possibility, but there is a minimum chance of that actually happening. What I have come to understand with these things is that one woman is worth a lot. They are the merchandise and they get paid over how many they bring in, Naruto said. Of course, that isn't to say they won't try any tricks. So how do we go about it? Tetsu asked. We should head in first, Naruto suggested. They are just bandits, no shinobi amongst them. In terms of shinobi rank, you can as well say that there are just genins. If we go out and make a show, they will turn their focus on us and a number of them will be drawn towards us. Naruto looked at the team leader. You can drop in and take out the ones surrounding the victims. Mahiro appeared to think for a few moments before speaking. Create 3 clones and henge them into 3 different people. 3 clones plus the 3 of you will make up for numbers. That means that even if they do underestimate you because you're just kids, your numbers will force them to act otherwise. There was no need to go over such a complicated thing. Naruto could just create a transformation of 3 different people, real transformations instead of just illusions. Naruto held his hands together, and in a puff of smoke 3 adults appeared. It was Kurena, Minato, and a young woman. Mahiro raised an eyebrow, but it was Natsumura who spoke. I'm guessing that even bandits know about Konoha's yellow flash, he said, smiling a bit. That will create some fear, and although they are just bandits, they should be smart enough to know the danger. Why Kurena-san though? I've grown fond of her, Naruto said a bit indifferently. Oh, is Naruto in love with an older woman? Tetsu asked in a playful tone. Naruto ignored the genin and looked their Jonin-sensei. It is getting late and after success, we will have to make a choice on whether we move or camp out. Mahiro nodded. Let us move out, he said, and the seven disappeared. The group of bandits were sitting around a circle with the woman and children rounded up. They were busy in their talks of this and that while a few laughs went through and through. The bound victims only had looks of fear and despair, perhaps already resigned to what would await them should the bandits successfully drag them towards the rendezvous location. Today's delivery was low, one of the bandits said. When that man sent for us, I thought he had plenty of goods. Your greedy boss, another said. This stock is worth a lot more. As long as we don't run into Orochimaru, that bloody snake would kill us and then take our stock. That man has no sense of fair business transactions. He is becoming a problem in our line of work, another added in a firm tone. Well, shinobi in general are a problem. They really think that they own this world. But their wars benefit us greatly, the boss pointed. When they are busy killing each other, we get to work. Even at times like these, most of them just ignore us for their missions and their enemies. He paused for a moment. The fire count minus. Hokage-sama, a voice called out, making the bandits stand in battle mode. The Yondaime Hokage landed on the ground just away from the bandits. Kurena and the other woman followed shortly. Sorry, the Hokage apologized to his companions. I sensed something sinister and knew I had to come over here. One of the bandits took out a picture and looked at the three. Oh, isn't that Konoha's yellow flash? It could just be one of those shinobi tricks they call genjutsu. One of the bandits said. Minato tilted his head to the side and took out a kunai. In a fast motion, he threw the kunai straight towards one of the bandits and blurred out of sight, only to appear in front of the bandit. Am I fake? He asked, pulling the bandit closer to him in a sudden yank. His right hand quickly flashed the man's head and after a quick chop, the man fell down the ground. Shit, it is really him. Would you rather surrender, or do you want to do this the hard way? I would rather die trying. The moment he said that, smoke bombs started exploding around them, creating a huge smoke screen around the area. Boss, where are you? I can't see. Hey, what are minus more shouts like that occurred around the place as the smoke loomed large. When it cleared, the bandits were all lying on the ground out cold. You could have helped, you know. Tetsu glared at Naruto, looking a bit tired with a small cut on his left shoulder. You handled it well, there was no need for me to do anything, Naruto responded. I did my fair share and helped you get into position you can take them out without any troubles. You shouldn't be complaining. What if I had received a larger cut than this? Naruto was already looking away when the question came. He didn't have any interest in getting involved in pointless arguments. When it appeared that Tetsu wasn't going to let it go, Mahiro stepped in. Stop it, Tetsu, the man said firmly. What do we do about this, sensei? Natsumura asked, looking at the situation around them. There were bandits and a handful of women along with 5 children. We will tie them around, and when we reach Konoha, we will inform the Hokage. It is likely that by the time we reach the Hidden Leaf Hunter, Nins would have disposed of them though, Mahiro said, turning to face the victims. We will head to Konoha with them. Leaving them here would be risky. We may have as well not saved them. The man ordered his team to tie the bandits with chains around the trees as he went up to unbound the flinching victims. He smiled reassuringly at them though, and once done, he gave one his kunai. My name is Mahiro Takagawa. I am a jonin from Konohagakure and those are my students. We are just coming from the land of rivers. We will not harm you, but we would like you to cooperate with us and head to Konoha with us. It will be quite dangerous if we just leave you here. It took a few more minutes of smooth talk from the man for the victims to finally consent to his request. He had Naruto give them water to drink, and they gave all the food they had to the women so that they should share. It was not much, but it was something. The group took the direction of Konoha afterwards, and walked for about an hour before they camped, seeing the sun setting. Night came in and Mahiro allowed his students to sleep while he stayed up all night on guard duty. He figured after all the work for the day, they needed some rest as tomorrow was another long day. The following day, the journey towards the hidden leaf had started smoothly as they were able to spend the night in the forest without any disturbances, well from any potential enemy. There had been a few of the women who tried escaping thinking that they were still being kidnapped by more evil men pretending to be konoha shinobi. Other than that, the group had safely walked through into afternoon. When it appeared that they would reach the hidden leaf without any trouble, Mahiro suddenly called the group into halt as a kunai with an explosive tag was thrown in front of them. The tag exploded, just front of the group, causing them to shield themselves for the blast. Naruto's quick response was to make a clone that created a barrier around the victims. Military code had been that civilians should always be put into safety before anything and no action should threaten their lives. And so, the clone he created protected the civilians. Mahiro frowned as their enemies landed in front of his team, a Kumo Jonin and 2 missing nins. This was a difficult situation. He didn't wish for his team to face something like this. At least they didn't have to worry about the women. Naruto had that covered up. "Yo, Uzumaki, remember me?" Mikado asked with a grin on his face. Naruto tilted his head to the side looking thoughtful. Am I supposed to remember you?" the redhead asked. It was purposeful. There was no way he could not remember the man he had apprehended during in Training Ground 44. Mikado frowned slightly. "Are you freaking kidding me, brat?" the man demanded, ripping off his shirt, revealing the marks Naruto had left on him. "You did this," he shouted as he took out a kunai and slashed his headband. "And are forcing me to make this decision." He then snapped his fingers and the nins beside him charged towards the group. Mahiro intercepted the 2 by charging towards them. He acted quickly and sent one of them flying towards another direction while the other reacted quicker and tried to punch him in the face, but Mahiro blocked the punch easily enough. Naruto showed no outward emotion seeing his sensei engaged in a battle. The 2 didn't seem that strong, and so he had little doubt that the man would take too much time with them. The problem was the man before him. He certainly held a grudge, and he looked more than ready to kill him more than anything. With Mahiro whisked away, Naruto knew what he had to do. "You 2 stay behind him," the redhead said firmly. He didn't make any moves to attack. He stayed calm. "What? You're going to protect me now?" Tetsu demanded. "Willingly, I would not," Naruto said, "but this is a team and I must follow the rules of engagements." The redhead stated calmly. "I have no interest in the 2 of you," Mikado said to Tetsu and Natsu. "I want him only, but if you interfere, I will kill you both and then reward myself with those goods behind you." Naruto stepped forward a bit. There was no escape. There was no running away from this. This wasn't a battle Naruto wanted to fight. Even though it was not his first thought, he would rather call his father now. This man before him was a Jonin, and he could not risk anything in the situation. He placed his hand on his left pocket, but found nothing. He realized he left that damned kunai during the first mission. He has never taken it up since then. Curses. Earth style, mud dragon. Mikado said, slamming his hands on the ground. The ground shook as he had formed a large dragon. The jutsu then sped towards Naruto and his team. The redhead released his chakra chains, engulfed by flames. The chains pierced through the dragon, tearing it apart before it could reach him. "I knew you'd do that," Mikado said, suddenly on Naruto's right-hand side. He quickly acted in sending his right foot towards Naruto, slamming it on the redhead's shoulder. The kick sent Naruto flying away from his team. "Tetsu, don't!" Natsu shouted, but he was ignored by the genin who charged straight at the jonin. Mikado merely grinned when Tetsu swung a kunai towards his abdomen. He dodged the swing and grabbed the genin by his forehead before picking him up. He brutally slammed him into the ground before speaking. "Stupid brat," he said as he turned his attention towards Naruto. He darted towards the redhead, who quickly surrounded himself by multiple chakra chains. Mikado didn't seem to mind. He jumped into the air and twisted, sending a chakra-enhanced right kick towards Naruto. The kick sped through the air before connecting with the chains, and when it did, the chains burst into flames, catching his foot. Mikado quickly jumped away as he tried to put out the fire on his right foot before it could burn him. He frowned looking at the redhead before going through hand seals. Lightning style, lightning dragon. He formed a small dragon formed of lightning before directing it towards the redhead. As the jutsu crashed into Naruto's chains, he flashed behind the redhead. But the chains were there as well. Even so, he armed his right hand with lightning chakra before slamming his punch into the defense. The same thing happened as before. Flames just burst out, causing him to retreat once again. "You're going to play like that, huh?" Mikado said. "Just take all attacks until I tire, huh? Well, let us see how that defense will do against these," he said, taking out a number of small explosives bombs. He threw them all around Naruto, and clasped his hands together. "Burn!" he shouted as the tags ignited a chain of explosion that rocked through around Naruto, creating a large dome of flames. "Ha ha 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 ha." Mikado laughed maniacally, but when the flames died down, his laughter died on his throat, replaced by a deep frown. Naruto was still standing still, unharmed. There was just a crater around him, but he looked just fine. Seeing that a barrier was clearly visible, he realized that he was clearly dealing with an Uzumaki here. He looked around before coming up with a plan. He took out a kunai and turned towards Natsu, who had a kunai of his own out already. The man appeared to run towards Natsu, but he suddenly changed directions and turned towards the knocked-out Tetsu. He grabbed the boy from the ground and picked him up. He looked at Natsu and wagged his finger. "Stay there," he said before turning towards Naruto. "Apparently, I can't bypass that barrier, and one of my tools is already dead. I underestimated your sensei a little bit. Nevertheless, if you want him to live, come out of your comfort zone." Naruto's eyes turned cold as he looked at the man. "Despicable," he uttered in a tone that seemed to have come out from the mouth of a winter dragon. "I should have just snapped your bones that day," the redhead stated as his chains dispersed. "Good boy," Mikado said with a grin. "Now, catch," he said as he threw Tetsu towards Naruto. The redhead darted towards his teammate and jumped above the ground to catch the genin. Naruto there is a minus Natsu was cut off when an explosion occurred. When Naruto caught Tetsu with both his hands, a tag embedded on Tetsu's back suddenly glowed before exploding. As the explosion was occurring, Mikado flashed behind a retreating Naruto with a dripping kunai. He tried to slash the kunai on Naruto's back, but Mahiro suddenly appeared between them and grabbed Naruto with both his hands, his back facing Mikado. The kunai slashed his back before he sped away with Naruto. Looking at his winded sensei, Naruto shook his head, clearing all thoughts. The man suddenly dropped on his knees. Naruto looked at him for a moment before he looked back at the laughing Mikado. "Poison," Mikado stated with a grin. "Like that little firework. Can you smell the beautiful smell of roasted flesh?" Naruto held out his right hand and a large Fuma shuriken appeared in a puff of smoke. The redhead held it firmly as he did a quick spin before sending the shuriken flying towards Mikado. The man merely sidestepped the shuriken, but as it got past him, there was a puff of smoke. "Got you," Naruto said above air, just behind Mikado. The man quickly twisted around, eyes slightly wide as the Naruto twisted, sending a right-footed kick towards his face. Instinctively, Mikado managed to block the kick and grabbed the foot before grinning, but then Naruto suddenly exploded in a loud explosion of flames. Before he could jump away, 6 incredibly hot chains pierced through him, 2 on both his shoulders and 2 on hips, and the remaining 2 through his knee joints. "You fucking brat. That was just a diversion to get closer to me." Naruto managed a smile, a cruel smile. "Someone got in the way last time. But since there is an emergency, I won't make this long." The moment those words left his lips, another chain burst out from his body, and quickly wrapped around the man up until his forehead. Have you wondered what it would feel like if your body was being crushed slowly? Have you experienced the pain you feel when your lungs and heart are being squeezed together by own ribcage? Have you ever heard things snap inside your body? Ch. Mikado cried a chilling screech as his body was being crushed. It was for about a minute as he felt bones snapping and yet being pressed together. Blood was gushing out of his mouth and ears as the chains pressed. I wonder what would happen if I forced one chain down your throat. Naruto shook his head, smiling. No time for that. Naruto clasped his hands together. Death, he said as his chains burst with crimson flames. The flames spread towards Mikado before bursting into a brilliant flame once they touched his flesh. Naruto dispersed his chains and turned away without another look. Sensei, sensei! It was Natsumura who was shouting. The redhead closed his eyes. He didn't want to see the body that had exploded in his hands. He dispelled his clone and placed kunais around the fearful-looking woman. Naruto didn't realize that he had blood on his shirt. He erected a barrier around them without saying a word. He walked towards Natsu with his eyes closed and stopped there. Stay behind. I will get help in Konoha. There are still those women, Naruto said emotionlessly, his eyes still closed. He has been poisoned. I cannot allow him to die when he took it to save me. Naruto said, pushing the man into his back. What about them? And Tetsu? They won't be going anywhere inside that barrier, Naruto said, giving Natsu a small sheet of paper. It is likely that Anbu will come here. They will be the fastest to come here and clean the mess. He needs medical attention. He said of their sensei. Before Natsu could say anything, Naruto blurted away. That was far faster than anything he had ever seen from the redhead. Natsu shook his head and slumped down on his knees as the situation fully played on his head. He was alone, Tetsu was gone. Was this the brutality of the shinobi world? Had Naruto not hid himself from that man and just fought, things would have played out differently. The redhead had the speed and fought strategically. He could have held the man while their sensei came. But he had chosen to be a coward and hide within his comfort zone, and that man had used Tetsu to get to him. For a moment Natsu had thought that Naruto would have said no, but that changed nothing though. The fact was that their team was destroyed because Naruto chose not to fight even when he knew he had to fight for all of them to live. Was he to blame for all these? That man had attacked them because Naruto had done something to him. Naruto was the reason they were attacked, and it had nothing to do with the fact that he was the Yondaim's son. It was his actions that brought about this. If it hadn't been for him, things would have been different. They would have been attacked, and if he had fought, Tetsu would still be sprouting nonsense. Konoha. Konoha's Anbu had caught up to the speeding Naruto before he even reached the village. He was close though. He had told them to follow his trail, and they would find what they had to find. 3 of the 4 had gone back while 1 took Mahiro and Naruto towards the hidden leaf. It had all happened quickly and Naruto had been brought to the Hokage's office to explain what had happened. He was tired, really worn out. He just wanted to take a nap, or something intoxicating that would help stop thinking. None of this would have happened if he had just killed that man. If he had snapped his bones then, this wouldn't have happened. Enemies were dangerous to let live. He was not going to make the same mistake twice. Give an enemy a chance to live, and they will come back to haunt you. Enemies were to be eradicated. They were to be incinerated by his flames. What happened, Naruto? Minato asked, a serious look on his face, but his tone was soft. Naruto had his eyes closed. He only opened them partially, as he responded in an emotionless tone. That man who attempted to kidnap Hinata attacked us with some missing nins. He slashed his forehead before anything. The redhead went through the highlights as Minato listened. Why didn't you use the kunai I gave you? That would have solved all matters. He would have come in to save the day. He didn't just wish to the savior. But he just wanted to be there when his son needs him. If Naruto had used that kunai, his presence would have stopped anything from happening. I didn't have it, Naruto said, lips twirling into a smile, a bitter smile. It has been dancing in my room. Minato understood the bitterness. Naruto had lost a teammate, and it could have been avoided. Everything could have been avoided. But Minato wasn't going to play the blame game. There were things that occurred we ended up having to regret our choices. But just because things happen doesn't mean we ought to blame ourselves. There are just some things that are beyond one's control. Minato smiled sadly as he looked at his son. He didn't want his son to end up like Kakashi. One teammate was dead and his sensei was in the hospital, having taken a bullet for him. What could be going on inside Naruto's head? What could he be thinking at this point? Kakashi had recovered, well, mostly recovered. Perhaps he could be of some help. He would call the Jonin to help out with the situation. Then there was Kurena. Naruto did seem to speak well about her since she usually trained with his team. Perhaps another foreign touch would do to help. Do you blame yourself? I don't know, Naruto said. Can I go home? I want to sleep and just shut off. Minato nodded and allowed the redhead to walk away from the office. He would still need an official report to be compiled. Mahiro was not talking. If the man does wake up, he would be the one to give a report on the events that truly happened. Naruto could give a detailed report without being partial. That was one of the good things about Naruto. He was fair when dealing with things that included other people. When making a ruling, he spoke the truth regardless of how it would paint him. It was a time like this that Minato wished that Tsunade was in the village. There were deaths that could have been avoided if she had been there. But now that she was not in the village, there were things that the hospital could not handle. Poison was a delicate substance that needed an expert in medical ninjutsu, and the legendary sucker was that expert. He hoped that Mahiro's case wouldn't prove to be impossible to deal with. The fact that Naruto had bothered to carry the man back into the village was not due to attachments. There were a few things that the Hokage's son was attached to. Perhaps this was a matter of doing what was right, and the fact that he couldn't allow the man to die after taking a bullet for him. He should have been the one lying in a hospital bed. Minato had to deal with a dead genin. It really brought a frown on his lips that had lost someone young. The responsibility was on him as the Hokage. He has been dealing with it since he became Hokage. This of course made things complicated because his son was involved in the matter. He really should have known that man would return once again. It would have been better if Naruto had kept him alive. But the redhead had said with a ghost smile that he had crushed him and then turned his flesh into ash. Well, that was one problem gone. Kumagakure would not moan about it, but he would still have to inform the Raikage about it. It was around a couple of hours later that Natsumura was brought before him by an Anbu. Minato looked at the boy, who was wearing a blank expression on his face. The boy was smart, and wasn't the one who wore a smile all round. Minato could understand the blank look. Natsumura, Minato said in a Hokage tone. Tell me what happened. It was better to get all parts of the story. It was only after compiling all sides of the story that he would be able to fully understand what occurred. We had already succeeded on our mission and another side mission. Natsumura went on to explain his account. Naruto protected the women and had told us to stay behind him, but we were separated when that man attacked Naruto. Naruto chose not to attack instead. He protected himself, and when that man realized he could not break Naruto's defense, he threatened to kill Tetsu if Naruto didn't dispel his jutsu. Naruto did as the man instructed, but the man had planted an explosive tag on Tetsu's back. Naruto didn't see it and the man threw Tetsu towards Naruto, and when Naruto caught him, the man set off the explosive tag, and as Naruto was being blasted away, that man appeared behind Naruto and tried to cut him. But Sensei got in between and saved Naruto. Sensei got down after that, and Naruto didn't even ask what was wrong. He just managed to get behind that man before torturing him and then burnt him to death. Minato noted that there was a whole lot of Naruto in the story. It was Naruto did this and Naruto did that. He could understand that Mahiro had been busy with two other enemies who had forced the issue, and it was the best judgment to fight two strong opponents on his own. The explosion that took out Tetsu. That was a curious case. Naruto had said this, but he hadn't taken much note of it. But Naruto didn't look as if he had survived an explosion that occurred on his hands. That meant only one thing: Naruto had his last defense activated. Mahiro would not have noticed it, because it was not visible to the naked eye. That meant that Mahiro's intervention was unnecessary. Naruto wouldn't have been cut. It made sense: Naruto wasn't the one to leave himself exposed in the face of the enemy. He should have known that. What were you doing, Natsu? Tetsu attacked and was beat. Mahiro was busy with two other enemies and Naruto was defending himself. What were you doing? Naruto informed me that there was a barrier around the women, so they didn't have to be protected. What had he been doing? Had he been a spectator? But what could he have done in that situation? If he had attacked, he would have faced the same fate as Tetsu. They should have worked it together as a team, but they were not afforded that because the man only seemed interested in Naruto, and the redhead seemed fine with that. Naruto told me to stand back because the man said he only wanted him and didn't attack until he saw that he could not break his jutsu. I see, Minato said. What do you think could have been done to save Tetsu? Natsu was firm in his response. Naruto should have attacked from the start. If he had attacked, we may have worked together, and given his ability, it would have been possible to hold the man back until Sensei arrived. This is all because Naruto chose to hide. In the end, he showed that he can fight stronger opponents, and if he had used the same strategy he used in the beginning, even Sensei wouldn't have been hurt. So, it was Naruto's fault, huh? Minato thought. The Yondaime Hokage looked at Natsu and spoke. Thank you for your honesty, Natsu, he said. You're dismissed. Hi, the boy said and left the office. The following day. Training Ground 44. Naruto jumped from a tree branch, flying towards a dummy. He flung two shurikens towards the dummy, hitting the bull's-eye target and clasping his hands together, while he was still above the ground. Katan, Great Fireball no Jutsu. The redhead released a large ball of fire from his mouth, and the flames quickly engulfed the target, burning it to ashes as he landed on the ground. Naruto jumped towards his right hand, rushing towards a marked tree. As he was running, chains burst out of his body and sped towards the tree. They pierced through the trunk and spread towards the branches as Naruto came to halt, hands clasped together. Death. Flames spread from his body onto the chains, before rushing towards the tree through the chains. As soon as the flames made contact with the tree, they burst into a brilliant explosion of crimson flames that engulfed the whole tree. Naruto dispersed the chains as a clone appeared behind him, holding a kunai. It slashed the kunai horizontally, trying to cut through his back. Naruto jumped up, his head leaning backwards as his body positioned horizontally just above the clone. As gravity started to pull him downwards, twisted around to face down and held out his right hand, forming a ball of crimson flames. He slammed the jutsu straight into the head of the clone. The clone exploded in a puff of smoke after Naruto crashed his jutsu on it. The jutsu didn't disperse after hitting the clone, it retained its form before crashing into the ground, causing the ground to shatter. Naruto straightened himself and held out his left hand. He formed a ball of flames on the palm of his hand before holding out his right hand, channeling chakra through it. 5 orbs of condensed flames were formed around the swirling ball on the palm. The redhead made motions with his fingers, causing the orbs to spin around the large one. He twisted around and faced a tree. He threw the jutsu towards the tree. It took a second for the jutsu to reach the trunk of the tree, and when it did, there was a loud boom around the training ground, causing a large dome of flames to pick up as the flames terrorized all that they touched. Naruto fell on his knees, breathing heavily. After a moment, he held out both his hands. On his right hand, he formed a ball of flames, and on his left he created another of water. The water was bigger than the fire. He gritted his teeth before slamming the two jutsus together. The moment he did so, the mixture of a condensed fireball and the water boiled before exploding terribly on his hands. The explosion blasted him backwards, sending him towards a tree. The redhead brutally crashed into the tree. The lights went out. 2 hours later. Hospital. The moment Naruto's eyes snapped open, he cursed shit, he said, wincing as pain shot through his body unbelievably. His hands hurt the most, and it felt like they were burning. He held them for his eyes to see and frowned when he saw bandages around him. What happened? He wondered. Were you trying to commit suicide? Kirena asked, having allowed the fact that he used a foul language to slip through. Well, he was in pain. The medics had said he would wake up to severe pains. Naruto looked turned to face the ruby-eyed Chunin with his tilted to the side. Hospital, he said. Must have passed out. How long have I been here? 2 hours, Kirena said. Answer my question. Naruto smiled, shaking his head. I had some pent-up energy that I needed to release. There was just too much to deal with. Some anger and bitterness. You know, Natsu says I am at fault for what happened to Tetsu and Mahiro. When I looked at things, they could have played differently if I had done them in another way. The realization made me just angry. He was angry at himself for being a failure. Wasn't he supposed to be a great? But if he was still unable to protect his teammates, could he become great? Could he even protect his sister? Was he a failure of a shinobi? There were many thoughts that went up in his head that he needed to get out. The only reprieve came with the thought that he turned that man into ash. I understand releasing some pent-up energy, but your hands suffered massive burns. If you were not Uzumaki, you wouldn't have recovered. Although you will recover, your skin will still show those marks, Kirena said in a stern tone. What were you doing? Boil, Naruto explained. I must have boiled my hands, he said in a quiet tone. I was trying to see if it was possible to create boil release by combining water and fire. The theory was simple: more water and less fire, but hot enough to boil. Less fire would mean that the water would not be consumed by the flames, and it would be the one that consumes the flames. However, because of the heat of the flames, the water would boil considerably. Kirena stared at the redhead for a long minute. That is something complex, she said. You nearly gave your father a heart attack when he saw portions of your skin melting at the side of your hands. Really, you're very fortunate. Naruto looked at his bandaged hands. The pain didn't seem like it was going to go anywhere soon. It was a disappointment. Why had he even tried using that jutsu without using clones to do it for him? Oh, he wasn't thinking straight. I'm guessing my mother doesn't know, Naruto said, a bit relieved. Kirena nodded. The Hokage thought it best she wasn't told, as she would only worry too much. How are you dealing with all these? Naruto lay back to the bed and stared into the ceiling. There were mixed emotions, but I'm okay now. After nearly exhausting my chakra, I feel light, the redhead said. How is M-? Naruto didn't get to finish what he was saying because Yoshino walked into the room. Kirena excused herself and went outside to give the two some privacy. Naruto turned his eyes towards the old woman. She looked rather pale. Shouldn't you be the one lying in this bed? I'm only like this because I exhausted myself mending your skin. If you hadn't been blasted away by the explosion, you wouldn't be having hands right now, Yoshino said sternly. It was safe to say she looked pissed off. You're really a problem, you know. We have to deplete our funds taking care of the people your team saved, and now this. What? The village doesn't have the funds to do anything. We have always been peace-loving people, and we care about lost souls more than other clans. They are now living inside our compound. It is your mess, Yoshino said, pointing a finger at Naruto. As punishment for all these, you will have to earn the money to support those people, and you will not be clan head until you're 18. Perhaps then you will have learned to be responsible. When you return from your Chunin exams, I will have your chakra sealed for a month, and you will be confined in the compound while I teach you how to be responsibility and discipline. Naruto looked at the old woman with an expressionless look on his face. Accidents in the training ground happen. Yes, but yours had serious consequences, Yoshino stressed. Next time you burn yourself, I won't sacrifice myself to heal you. The woman said before walking away from the office. Naruto had been feeling light, but now he felt heavy once again. He was so lost in his thoughts that he didn't even hear Kirena walk back into the room. The man had to pinch him to get his attention. Not a good talk. Naruto shook his head. Unfortunately, he said, I feel in need of something that will intoxicate my senses and perhaps indulge in something that will defile this body of mine. Kurena raised an eyebrow. Do you hate yourself that much? Hate myself? Naruto smiled. I love myself, but I just want to forget everything. Be in another world and experience empty joy and pleasure. You're feeling miserable, Kurena managed to say. Anyone who would to go in that same line would be feeling miserable. Misery did make people did crazy things just so they can feel alive and happy. But Naruto had simply called it empty joy and pleasure, so it was likely that it would not be real pleasure, but just something to make him forget things. You don't really blame yourself about what happened, yet you feel miserable that it occurred. Kurena said. Your way of handling things is complicated. But I will tell you, quick joys will not solve anything. In fact, once you rely on substances to continue living, you will grow addicted to them and instead of dealing with your issues, you will turn to those things. My advice to you, Naruto, go home and spend time with your sister. Chapter 11. Kumagakure. Things were not going exactly in the way Minato had planned for them. But there was no doubt in his mind that Naruto would be able to sweep aside his opponents during the exams. It wasn't just the hope of a father in his son, but the belief coming from understanding the difference in power, and having seen his son fight as well as train hard in order to be a capable shinobi. Anything less than victory for Naruto was unacceptable. It was not the expectation that had been placed on the redhead by him or anyone in the village. Of course the villagers had seen them off when they were leaving the Hidden Leaf and were expecting nothing less of victory. Konoha was the best and its shinobi were expected to be the best. But that was not what made defeat and failure unacceptable. Naruto just didn't like losing. He was so focused when fighting an enemy that Minato truly feared for anyone who would face him when he was in the mood. As Itachi has always said, Naruto is a genius in a fight. But of course that genius does not always show. When he was hard-pressed, that was when the best of him surfaced. They had come to the cloud for the exams, and it has just been the two of them. Normally, Naruto was supposed to come with his team and a sensei, but he didn't have that at the moment. Team Mahiro was no more and so Minato had spoken with the Yondaime Raikage about allowing Naruto to participate without a team. The man had been amused when Minato made the request, but he didn't refuse. He only said if Minato thought Naruto could survive, then he was not going to stop them. There was one thing that he had made with the Raikage about Naruto's participation in the exams. Kumagakure would not be responsible if anything happens to Naruto whether during the exams or while still in the village. Minato could have understood in the exams without any complaints, but he around the village. He had made some complaints, but the man was not willing to budge and he had been forced to agree to the terms just so Naruto could participate. It didn't matter either way, he would make sure that Naruto was safe and the redhead could take care of himself. Looking at his son, Naruto was standing by the window, looking at the streets of the Kumo. Minato could see that he was really excited. He could tell even though Naruto wasn't looking at him. He could read the body language. Are you really this excited about this? Minato asked, walking over to Naruto. Naruto waited until his father was by his side, looking outside their hotel. Yes, he said with a smile. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Itachi had done it way before him and now it was his time. It was time for the elemental nations to know that he was Uzumaki Naruto, not just the son of Konoha's Yellow Flash. The path to his fame had to begin with his domination of the exams. He could not have things either way. In the finals of the exams he had to win by a large margin. Defeat would not be allowed to smell him. If it does there would be pain to whoever causes it. For these past years, he had been forced to act the good police officer in the streets of the Hidden Leaf, but now he was free. He could look at his dream. He could make his way into books of legends by starting things here. Besides, he was tired being called a genin. Other shinobi tended to look down on you just because you are a mere genin. After this exam, he would no longer be genin, but a chunin. And after this, he would give it a year at most for the Jonin flank jacket to be handed over to him. He was dreaming big. Just don't get too excited though, Minato warned. You don't want to end up being careless. Minato almost hit himself after saying those words, Naruto being careless in a battle. The very thought was amusing, and on the flip side of the coin, it was just ridiculous. That would be a foolish mistake, Naruto said to his father. The reception in the village has not been that bad though, the redhead calmly. He couldn't go as far as to say that upon their entrance in the village, they had been showered with love and affection. Saying that would be a complete lie. Kumagakure has just been neutral towards him. Minato received the greetings and respect he commanded a Kage, and one of the most famous shinobi in the current lifetime. There was nothing more than that. Naruto held no love for Kumagakure. Even if they had glared at him, he would not have minded, nor would he have given it much thought. The feeling would have somewhat mutual. Kumagakure has been nothing but a pain to him. But of course, the redhead wouldn't go as far as to say he would be more than willing to attack any cloud shinobi he comes across. He wasn't that much of a terrible person. Or was he? Considering the current diplomatic relationship between the two villages, I am surprised as well, Minato said. It could be that the most villagers don't know everything. There are things that are not for the masses to know. Better off ignorant, huh? Naruto said, and though. How he missed those days. The redhead sighed as he spoke once again. I wonder how it would be in Iwagakure if we were to go there. It would be an unpleasant experience, Minato said with somewhat of a pained look on his face. I am not the most loved person in that village. When some look at me, they see the man responsible for slaughtering their loved ones. But it was war, Naruto said. They should at least understand that. People. The redhead shook his head. Our emotional opinions of people make us handle things irrationally and illogically. Those people are consumed by their hatred that they cannot see past reason. Minato actually turned to face Naruto, a bit surprised that those words actually came out of Naruto's mouth. Naruto didn't usually talk about things like that. He could talk about other things, like the state of the shinobi world, but he was never actually focused on dealing with people and their emotions. You have studied the behavior of people. A necessity during my days in MPC, Naruto said a bit indifferently. It wasn't easy to diffuse conflicts if you could not understand the people. Understanding how people think and walk made it easy to be able to see when things were wrong. The Uchiha's problem was that they didn't try to understand people and the situation around them, they just used force. That was one of the reasons they didn't get along with the villagers. Minato nodded. Force is necessary at times. He said. It is, but one must be able to judge when it must be applied. If you just apply the force when there is no life being threatened and with the villagers watching, you will have a problem. Naruto said. I was able to function well because I was able to adapt to the demands of the job while not looking at what I must do, but what the villagers will think about my actions. Minato smiled. You managed to change the image of the Uchiha by that, the Yondaime Hokage said. Fugaku will always be thankful, you know. He has given me a lot. Though having to adapt to that kind of life was a bother, it was the least I could do for him, Naruto responded calmly. Well, let us just hope that nothing happens that will ruin your relationship with the Uchihas. Hopefully, but I am not too concerned about it, Naruto said a bit carelessly. Your mind appears to be fresh considering what was happened over the past weeks, Minato said. To be honest, he was actually worried about Naruto's state of mind after what happened. Perhaps the redhead was okay because he was shoving his burdens at the back of his head and just ignore them. He was rather good at ignoring things. He really hoped that was not the case though. The fears about the redhead's mental state have been always present, but according to Kurena, Naruto knew how to handle his problems, and was actually fine. But she did say that there might be something wrong with him, because how he handled his problems was not how normal people handled his problems. Psychological evaluation still showed nothing. I have no burdens, Naruto only said. If I had burdens, I wouldn't be able to focus, and I wish not be an embarrassment in this stage that has been prepared. Everybody deals with different situations in life, and I have learned that we all deal with them in different ways. Some prefer talking about them. I don't like that. Normal people talk about things, Naruto, Minato said a bit firmly. Then I'm not normal, Naruto said with a shrug of his shoulders. I'm going out. The exams don't start until tomorrow. Be careful, Minato said to the redhead. He knew that Naruto was leaving because he no longer wanted to talk about subject they were having. Saying he was going out was his way of saying he was tired of the crap they were talking about. Outside, Naruto made his way through the cloud streets, his eyes not bothering to look around the village to see how it was made and its structures. There was no need for him to see anything from the village. He had no interest in Kumagakure after all. Besides, there was already too much information inside his head. He did not need to get his head on overdrive over anything that was unnecessary. There were things that were just trivial, and he didn't need to know them all. As he walked around, Naruto made sure to see where he was going just so he doesn't end up getting lost in the village. It would be embarrassing if he ended up getting lost in the village. Who knew what might actually happen if he ended up in the wrong place? The village seemed rather lively though. No doubt that the Chunin exams were just a knock away. There were people around the streets, and it was clearly obvious that some of them were not from the cloud, but coming from other nations. Well, Chunin exams were mostly used for showing off and conducting business. No doubt even merchants would be roaming around looking for clients and other business opportunities. While on the way, Naruto saw a ramen stand and decided to get some. He wasn't hungry, but just wanted to taste its flavor and see if it was as good as the one sold in Konoha and Ikaraku ramen. The redhead smiled at the old woman behind the counter as he spoke. "One bowl of your best dish please," the redhead said. The old woman nodded and went away from the redhead. She returned a minute later with a bowl of what Naruto recognized as pork ramen. He breathed in the steaming moisture he dug in. "You here for the exams?" Naruto nodded. "It is not often we see Konoha shinobi in our village these days," the old woman said in thought. She then smiled. "Well, good luck in the exams." Naruto just thanked her and continued to eat his ramen without saying too much. He wasn't all fond in speaking to strangers. It might be called rude, but he didn't care. It was not like he was even ignoring her away. As Naruto was still eating, a man walked towards the stand and sat beside him. "The usual?" the old woman asked. The man nodded and did a few subtle hand seals, but Naruto noted by the use of chakra. He didn't say anything though. He just continued eating his ramen in peace. Once his ramen was brought over, the man took out a picture and slid it over to Naruto. "Yugito ni," the man said as Naruto's eyes looked at the image of a blonde girl. "You're likely to face her in the Chunin exams. From all of Kumo's participants, she is the strongest. I suspect that she is a Jinchuriki of the two tails given that she is closer to both the Raikage and his brother. The former was even taking special care to her in preparation for the exams." Naruto looked at the image for a moment before it burned. He didn't respond. The man was done eating and walked away while Naruto was still savoring his bowl. Silencing jutsu. That was what the man had used to avoid anyone overhearing what he wanted to say, and provided that the old woman didn't even ask what he was going to eat, the redhead assumed the man was a regular in the stand. Who was he again? Naruto could not remember ever meeting the man anywhere in his life. He did forget about people, but he would have to ask his father about this. Back at the hotel, "I was almost ready to come look for you when I saw you were not returning," Minato said as Naruto walked towards the sitting Hokage. "I was thinking you'd gotten lost." "Why would you think that?" Naruto asked. It was just ridiculous asking that. He did have the thought of getting lost. Although his father was sometimes a bit overprotective, he could understand this one. He was thinking about it anyway. "Fugaku told me that in your first day when they had you memorize the village layout on your own, you got lost," Minato said. "It happens," Naruto said. The village is by no means small and I'm not the one to be usually roaming around the streets to actually know everything. The redhead said as he sat beside his father. A man walked up to me and gave me information. Oh, Drea's contact, Minato then smiled a bit sheepishly. Sorry, I should have told you about that before you left. Naruto just shook his head. What did he say? A suspected Kumo's Jinchuriki and that she is stronger than all other Kumo's participants. Naruto explained lightly. He was rather surprised at the fact that he could just accept those words from that man without thinking about anything. A normal person would have demanded answers from the man, but he didn't even ask for the man's name or why he was even telling him the information. He had simply taken it all in silently. Had he really become that kind of a person who just takes in everything that life gives and just accept it? Had he really become that kind of a person? The redhead shook his head. There was no need to have such thoughts. Even if he had become that kind of a person, what did it matter? He wouldn't complain if he was able to live through his life without any problems. You already know that Kumagakure has 2 Jinchurikis, Minato said calmly. We will also be assessing Kumo's military strength while in the village. With your defensive jutsus you will be able to fight your way out without using too much of ninjutsu. I would rather we keep it that way and while doing the tests avoid using too much chakra as you don't know what might happen next. Naruto just nodded. He had not planned on doing anything contradictory. Iwagakure will also be participating. Extra carefulness there, Minato said. I assume the reason the exams are being held just for 2 days only is because the Raikage doesn't want enemies inside his village. The more people there are, the harder it will become to keep surveillance. Well, we don't have to worry about anything. The man paused for a moment. We will be going to Kirigakure right after we finish the exams. Have that in mind. The following day, 9 a.m. The Chunin exams participants were all gathered at the village gates. There were so many participants from various villages. Naruto was leaning against the large gate frames with his hands folded across his chest, eyes closed. So many faces around and a lot of noise being made. And he was the only one who didn't seem to have a team with him. The others were on a team and that meant that things would be difficult for him, but not impossible. He could do this. Itachi had done it when the exams were being held in Konoha. What could stop him from making it? Uzumaki Naruto was not going to expect anything less than victory in the exams. He could not fail. There was a considerable amount of killing intent around the atmosphere. Some of it was being directed at him, but Naruto didn't even as much as twitch, he just remained calm, eyes closed. He looked to be in his own world, not caring about that was happening with everyone. The games had yet to begin, he could see things through when they do begin. Feeling almighty, eh? Naruto partially opened his eyes, he was being stared down by smirks from some genins. He closed his eyes and said nothing. They seemed to have a problem with him, but he did not. Perhaps if he just ignored them they would walk away. He wanted to laugh at that thought. When had it ever worked before? We are talking to you, another said, looking a bit insulted that he had been ignored. We heard that you are on your own. How arrogant can you be? You think just because you're the Yondaime son, you can take us all. I doubt that there won't be anyone who wants a piece of you. There was no hatred in that. Naruto could understand how it would make others feel, he was all alone, thinking he was powerful enough to do it on his own. Some people may feel insulted and would want to show it to him that he wasn't all that strong, and since he was just one person he would likely face ambushes since a team would rather attack one person rather than a group. Numbers would give others the advantage over him. Well, at least that is what he believed they would be thinking. The fact that he was the son of a famous person didn't lessen things for him. On a normal day, Naruto would hate being subjected to that kind of thing, but today he was glad for it. When they tell stories about this, it would make it even much more impressive. It wasn't just him against one opponent, it was him against many other opponents. This was th-. Naruto's thoughts were cut off when he was grabbed by his shirt. What? We not worth your time, Tem? Naruto tilted his head to the side and smiled thinly, eyes closed eyes and held up his hands as if to surrender. His words were different though. Yes, the redhead said bluntly. Now can you get your hand off me? Why you little? Let's just smack him around, another boy said as he stepped closer to Naruto. He drove his right punch towards Naruto's head. The redhead just tilted his head to ridiculous proportions to avoid the punch and just smiled. I dislike bullies, the redhead said calmly. Shinobi-san, will you get your hand off me? This is making me rather uncomfortable. And what if I don't? What are you going to do? Naruto stopped smiling and opened his eyes, turning a sharp and cold gaze. His lips curled slightly and he responded. You will be rolling around the ground with flames around your body. What? Naruto grabbed the hand holding him and shoved it away while slamming a paper into the chest of the genin. He then snapped his fingers and flames burst out of the paper, consuming the body. Ach. The boy cried out as the flames traveled around his body. His entire body was on fire, and he fell on the ground, rolling over as he tried to put out the flames. All eyes turned to face the redhead over what he just did. They had been looking when the confrontation started. Naruto really didn't care. He could not allow anyone to make himself lord over him. Nobody seemed to be in the position to help the poor body from being burnt to ashes because the flames were not dying regardless of much he rolled. His teammates looked clueless on what to do about the situation. They seemed hesitant. Perhaps stuck on whether they should try to hit him or help out their teammate. Naruto shook his head. Was the shinobi really like this? Were all these people just going to watch another shinobi die even when they have the power to stop it? It was a cruel world when you were surrounded by enemies. The redhead took out a marked kunai and threw it towards the boy. The kunai actually pierced through the boy's right shoulder, but the seal on it absorbed all the flames, and the moment all the flames were gone, 3 people crashed into the ground just away from the group. It was the Raikage flanked by 2 Jonins. The man spared no one a look, nor did he even ask what was going on. He just started speaking. The exams will be composed of 2 trials. One will be done today, and the finals will be held tomorrow. The Yondaime Raikage stopped there. The man on his right hand continued after he had spoken. To go the finals, you have to pass all of today's trials by 12 p.m. If you fail to finish before then, know that you have failed and you can pack your bags and go home. The man on the left hand took over. You have a written exam that you must complete during the first trial. Each team will be given a map. You will have to use that map to find the temple that is marked on the map. Upon reaching the temple, you will be given a flag with your village's symbol. The first person to reach the temple will be given answers to the exams. You will have to complete the written exam while on this mission. In order to pass, you need at least 2 flags. It must not be the same as you have. You must be in possession of 2 different flags. One more thing, the flag you have will determine who will face in the first round of the finals. Unless there are circumstances that force us to deviate from that, the first round tomorrow will be done so. The man paused for a moment. Let me be clear, you need 2 flags, and must finish before 12 p.m. You also need to have the map and the answer sheet given to you. Unless you tick all those boxes, you have failed. Any questions? Since we are going to be given 1 flag, does that mean that we will have to fight other teams in order to get the second flag? Yes. You will have to fight another team to get the second flag. How many flags are really there? Kumagakure and Iwa have more teams than any other. Konoha just has 1 person. It is possible that we may end up fighting our comrades. Say there are 10 different villages here, that means that there will be just 20 flags. Each village gets just 2 flags. There is a possibility that by the time you get to the temple, flags from your village will be finished. If you want to pass, you will have to fight to get them. If I manage to get 2 flags, but none are from my village, you fail unless one of the flags you have is from an ally of your village. There must be a friend or an enemy. With no more questions, They were given the maps and the answer sheets for the written exam. You're free to begin anytime you choose. The moment those words were said, Kumo shinobi were the first to leave. It wasn't surprising. They knew the temple better than anyone. Naruto didn't want to waste time. He wanted to be first. Reading a map wasn't that difficult for him. He could get through. The rest followed shortly afterwards. Leaving the village, they went into a forest. Naruto landed on a tree as he put on a thought. To have a safe passage he would need diversions. He created 10 clones and had them scatter around the terrain. They would give him a vision of what was happening around. It was obvious that some teams would not even bother to go to the temple. They would rather sit back and allow others to get the flags for them. It was all just troubling. Naruto wasn't going to allow anyone to get his flag though. He still needed to fight either way. The redhead positioned his map and looked at it to get the general location of where he was going. But before he could even leave, Yugito's team surrounded him. The blonde looked at the redhead who didn't appear alarmed. He just smiled at her. Naruto Uzumaki, she said. I hope you manage to make it to the finals. I wish to fight you. I have heard quite a lot about you. Naruto's smile was just charming, it wasn't creepy. I'm delighted that such a beautiful girl knows about me. The redhead tilted his head and closed his eyes as spoke once again, can we make a deal? A deal? Yugito, the only male in the team said warningly. We can't be making deals with the enemy. Not to mention he killed Mikado-sensei. The boy sent a glare at Naruto. The redhead tilted his head to the side. Mikado-sensei? The only jonin from Kumo he had killed was that man. If they were talking about him, how did they even know about it? It was supposed to be secret that he actually did it. It was unless Kumagakure had been watching. The boy sounded sure it was him that did it. But the Anbu had cleaned all evidence of that battle. It was either information was leaked, or Kumagakure had been watching it happen. Yugito ignored what was being said by her teammate and focused on Naruto. Why must I make a deal with you? I'm not familiar with this place, but you are. Why don't we go together? You can leave me at the temple once we get there and I will fight on my way back. If I'm good, I will make it back to the village with 2 flags and you will get to fight me, and if you win I can give you the formula of my father's flying thunder god technique. And if I lose? When we both become adults, you owe me a date, Naruto said smiling. Yugito snorted. I'm not stupid. Why would you risk that much just for a date? I think your beauty is worth it, Naruto said smiling. But of course, if you don't think you can defeat me, you can forget about it. You won't be losing much anyway. Are you crazy? Naruto shook his head. He took out a 3-pronged kunai. No, just confident about my abilities and very much attracted to your beauty that I'm willing to do anything. He said that bluntly. Yugito was confident about her abilities. She was confident she could not lose, but why would he offer that much? Did he really think that he could defeat her? What was making him so confident about beating him? Surely the Raikage would be infuriated if he learns that she refused such an offer. She was positive about that. How do I know you won't back out of the deal? Naruto threw the kunai he was holding towards the blonde. That is a special kunai my father uses for his jutsu. Having fought him in different occasions, your Raikage must know it. This is proof that I will not back down if I lose. Of course he didn't say the kunai actually had the seal on it. That would be just be playing dangerous. The kunai had a different purpose, but Yugito didn't know that, and that worked well for him. I want it back when I defeat you, Naruto said. Do we have a deal? On one condition, Yugito said. Even if you don't make it to the finals or lose to anyone other than me, you will still give me the technique. I can go with that, Naruto said. Then we have a deal, Yugito said. Follow us. And better keep up, because we will not wait for you. If you fall behind, that is your problem. Lead the way. Naruto said. People were really simple, weren't they? Just something that appeared to be attracting. They were ready to jump in the ship. Just because the nice Uzumaki was offering candy and she was ready to jump in his car. How could she accept such an unfair deal to begin with? She had basically put up nothing while he had put up Konoha's future in the line, and yet she accepted it without offering anything in return that would be equal to what he had in mind. The shinobi world was not fair. That much was very much apparent, and people were willing to do anything in order to get what they wanted. Should he say though? He was a selfish person who sought out what was best for him in most cases, and he wasn't even in Kumigakure for konoha, but for his own benefits. Naruto shook his as he hopped through the trees, following Yugito and her teammates. They ran for about an hour before reaching a place that had no trees. There were just large boulders around the place, and the Kumigakure team halted, taking slow movements as walked through the rocky area. The temple is just ahead, Yugito said. You can find it on your own. The moment those reached Naruto, she was gone. Naruto simply shook his head. He ended up smiling though as sped off. He had seen faster speeds for them to actually think that they'd lose him so easily. He was not a good chakra sensor, but he had followed their movements. Years of watching his father had really paid off, just as the man said it would. Once Naruto was able to see the large temple, he slowed down and just walked towards the muddy building. Congratulations, Kumigakure Jonin said as he gave Naruto the Konoha flag. Once Naruto got the flag, he sealed it away and made his way towards a large boulder as he collected the memories of his clones. He needed another flag in order to pass. Considering the fact that by the time they left the village it was already past 9 a.m. and it took about an hour to get to the temple, he could say he had less than 2 hours to finish things up. He had an hour for going back, and the rest of the minutes to fend off teams after him and get a flag. The problem was that other teams had yet to reach the temple, and he could not get a flag if others were not yet here. That was a problem. He would have to wait for another team, and while waiting time would not be on his side. They'd been given at least 2.5 hours to complete the trial. 2 hours for going and coming back from the temple. Within the remaining minutes, one had to fight for the second flag and do the damn written exams. Well, Naruto has not had a problem with anything written. His clones had given him the locations of other teams. There were a total of about 20 teams who had yet to take the flag. That meant about there would be no more than 11 teams in passing the trial. Time was also a problem. Most would likely not make it before 12 p.m. Without any more thoughts making it into his head, Naruto disappeared from the rocks, heading towards the trees. Once he was halfway through towards the village gates, the redhead stopped and relaxed on a tree branch. He created 10 more clones to go around and look for a team for him. Naruto was sure he had waited for about 30 minutes before his clones dispelled informing of the groups that had flags. Since there was a team that would make it towards him, Naruto had not bothered to leave his position. He stayed still and didn't hide his chakra. It would be much simpler for other teams to find him. Well, what do we have here? A genin from Iwagakure said, looking up at the redhead who was sitting atop of a tree branch, his feet swinging slowly. We must be fortunate to be finding Uzumaki of all people, another said smiling. But it seems you have been waiting for another team. I assume that you're also short of one flag to go back to the village. Naruto didn't look at the three. Why did he even choose to face Iwagakure shinobi to begin with? Did he just like the idea of fighting people who had a problem with his family? He couldn't sense much malice from the genins, but obviously he was not their favorites. The redhead looked at the gloves he was wearing for a second before jumping down the ground. He had wasted enough time already, and he needed to get this done quickly in order to make it in time. It would be rather disappointing if he failed to make it back before 12 p.m. But it was certain that he would get back to the village after 11:30. Naruto smiled at his guests before speaking. My flag is sealed in a storage scroll that is in my right pocket. If you want it, come and get it. You think you can take us on? One of the three asked. It is 3 against 1. Time is not on my side, so I would rather skip the chit-chat and get down to it, Naruto said a bit carelessly. But of course, if you're willing to give me your flag, I'd be more than happy to take it off your hands. Like we'd give a konoha shinobi our flag. This represents Iwagakure, and if we just give it away, it means we have insulted our village. We cannot let it fall into enemy hands. Then, come at me, Naruto said calmly. He never charged first against an opponent he knew nothing about. Even though he knew that they were just genins, he wasn't going to risk anything by being careless. He would wait for them to attack and make his move. It would be much simpler to allow them to attack than him attacking. He could read their game while they attack and counterattack. Opening himself up for an attack was not an option, especially when he didn't know what awaited him once he leaves this place. "You're on, Uzumaki." The three darted towards him all at once, taking advantage of their numbers. Naruto just stood still as his eyes watched their slow movements towards him. Perhaps he had just grown used to the speeds of his father and Itachi. Even so, he found this to be boring. Did he really have to wait for his opponents to reach him? He could make things easier by moving as well. Naruto shook his head. He shouldn't think like that. The three surrounded his form and Naruto finally took a stance as his eyes watched their movements. One attacked from the front, throwing a right swing that was aimed at the right side of his head. Naruto leaned back to avoid the bunch. He was forced to duck under a kick that was swung towards the back of his head from the genin that was behind him. The genin on his left side attempted to kick him. Was he in a crouched position? But Naruto caught the right foot with his right hand. The redhead stood up, still holding the foot. He stomped on the genin's leg just around his knee. There was a loud snap followed by a cry of pain. Naruto pushed the genin backwards before making a distance with the three. "Fuck. You broke my leg." The genin cried out his broken leg. "What are you still doing here? The bastard broke my leg. Go after him." Was this really simple as he thought it was? Really, he had grown used to the fists and kicks of Fugaku that he never attempted to block, that this was really child's play. It was not entertaining, and that made him very displeased. He was very disappointed that he even stopped smiling. He wouldn't complain if it was just bandits, because he expected them to be pathetic against a shinobi, but for genins to be this slow, it was really disappointing. Naruto felt a bit mad at the three for being such disappointments. If people were going to fight him, they should at least do better than this. Naruto was brought out of his thoughts when the two charged towards him once again. He waited until they all lunged at him all at once before releasing a smoke bomb. He was using it to cover up what was coming up. As soon as the two were caught in the smoke, Naruto released his chakra chains. They tried to get out of the smoke, but they were all caught. "Short distances favor me greatly because I can do this," the redhead stated calmly as his chains wrapped around the two genins. "It doesn't matter how powerful you are, but if you allow me to get closer to you enough for the chains to get you, I win. Bastard. Free us. After putting out such a show, I should punish you." "You were a disappointment," Naruto stated calmly, as his chains lifted the two. "Should I break a few bones, crush you to death, or just burn? Well, it doesn't matter. In the end, you all experience pain." The redhead shook his head. "I shouldn't make enemies like that. Now where is your flag?" "We are not telling you." Naruto stared at the boy who said that and brought him closer. He smiled. "You will," he said, clasping his hands together. Pained cries echoed throughout the trees as Naruto worked on the genins. It took a minute or so before they finally spoke. Naruto didn't want to feel miserable afterwards, so he didn't commit any sin of killing anyone. Meanwhile, "Someone is already doing something," one of Yugito's teammates said, looking up into the sky after hearing the pain screams. "We already have 2 flags. It shouldn't bother us," Yugito said. "But we still need more flags to reduce the numbers of those who will make it back to the village with 2 flags. That was their mission anyway. The Raikage had said that those who would be defeated would be weak, and there would be no need to cater for them in the finals. He only wanted a small number of people competing in the finals anyway, and those genins had to be strong. Anything less would make the exams boring, and he didn't want that. He only wanted to see the strongest fighting in the finals. We should get to work on it then, the other teammate said. There isn't too much time to waste. What are you going to do about the Uzumaki? The male in the team asked. Surely we can't allow him to have a safe passage back into the village. Something tells me he will be having 2 flags with him. But what if we tell other teams what he has 3 or more flags? They will wait for him just away from the gates and against the numbers. No matter how strong he is, he will likely be held back and won't make it in time. Fair enough, the male said. Do you actually believe the deal though? I wouldn't put much into it, the other girl said calmly. You do remember what we did, right? It could be that he is trying to play mind games. No sane person can make that kind of a deal. Back with Naruto. Naruto frowned when he came into the view of the rocky village hidden in clouds. The gates, to be exact. Between him and the gates, there were 4 teams blocking the path. It was no doubt in his mind that they were waiting for him. What was the point of searching for him when he could walk towards them? The damn proctors were just standing at the gates, watching. Where was the fairness in all these? Naruto looked up into the sky for a moment before walking towards the 12 genins. He stopped at a good distance. It was unlikely that there were traps around the ground. There were 12 of them, and he was just 1 genin. Their numbers would have given the confidence to do things without traps, as they would be counting on their numbers to do it for them. Give us all your flags and we won't harm you. One of the genins said. We are told you have about 4 flags with you. If you can just give us your flags, we won't have a problem. We will simply make our way to the village while you go back home. Naruto didn't respond. There was no need to do so. He just had to do what he had to do. The redhead started to run towards the group of genins in an acceptable speed. It may have been a bit too fast for genins, but that didn't matter. He wasn't going to fight such a number of genins when there was no need to do so. When he was a couple of feet away from the group, Naruto pushed chakra into his feet and took off from the ground in a burst. Once he was in midair, he summoned 3 clones. All 3 held his body. The redhead used the clones to balance himself as he pushed more chakra into his knees. The clones had their hands held together with Naruto kneeling on them. The redhead took off like a bullet, blasting away from the clones, and as he did, the clones disappeared in a puff of smoke. The genins could only watch as Naruto blasted above them in tremendous speed. The redhead landed on the ground away from them, and turned to look at them. He smiled, waving his right hand. I didn't take the Uzumaki to be a chicken. Coward, running away from a battle. Naruto just turned away without responding. They would fight amongst themselves. He wasn't going to entertain them or their small talk. He really had no appetite for that kind of talk. Besides, between him and 12 of them, who was the real coward? He was just 1 and they were 12, and yet they have the balls to call him a coward for avoiding them. Ridiculous. 11:45, one of the proctors said to Naruto as he reached the gates. Produce your flags, answer sheet, and you pass. Naruto took out his summoning scroll and summoned the 2 flags before handing them to the proctor. He withdrew the answer sheet and the map from his left pocket and handed them to the man. You didn't fill in any answers. The man stated. Naruto shrugged. You didn't say we had to fill in the answers in order to pass. If I remember correctly, I just had to return this paper, the redhead said calmly. The man just smiled and congratulated the redhead for making it. Naruto didn't even sound excited that he had made it. He just nodded and walked towards the frame of the gate and settled down with his eyes closed. 15 minutes passed, and only 4 teams had made it. They were gathered around by the proctor, who congratulated them all on passing before he started explaining the purpose of the trial. As a shinobi, you will be sent to do missions on places you do not know, surrounded by enemies, and you'll still have to complete it within a given time. The flags represented what you're fighting for. Shinobi must be willing to die for their villages. If you simply gave away your village's flag, it means that you're not strong enough to fight for your village. If you're captured by the enemy and taken through torture, you will tell village secrets. Under no circumstances must you give away village secrets. Those who simply gave away their flags under pain gave away their village's security. You didn't have to answer the questions we gave you. It's simple. The answer sheet represented a scroll you were given to deliver. The answers are really difficult to answer. Even some jonins can't answer the questions. Given the difficulty, it was obvious that you'd fight over not just for the flags, but for the answers. Most of you probably thought you had to answer the questions in order to pass. If that was an important scroll containing valuable information, you would have to protect it without your life against enemies who want that information. Bringing it back means you have completed your mission successfully. The other proctor took over. There are 13 of you, and we can't draw the matches with one short of a partner. Is there anyone who wants to quit? Tomorrow, you will be fighting your friends. The male from Kumo's team quit. Excellent, the proctor said. The finals will be held at the stadium from 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, but you should be at the stadium at 8 so that you can know who will face. Later, Yugito held the kunai that Naruto gave her, staring at it. She was standing right in front of the door to A's office. She was rather flattered that Naruto thought of her as beautiful, and that he was willing to risk it all just for a date with her. This kunai was proof that an agreement had been made, and she didn't doubt that he would make true to his word. There wasn't much she knew about his skills, but he had to be obviously skilled if Konoha was willing to send him on his own to represent it. What was he thinking though? There had to be something that he had planned. He couldn't have made the deal on the spot, could he? Anything was possible at this stage, but Yugito was sure that the redhead had something planned up. Either way, she had to tell the Raikage about it. The man would be infuriated with her if she keeps it to herself. Yugito braced herself as she knocked. Once the magic words were uttered, she walked in. What is it, Yugito? Yugito placed the kunai in her pocket before she responded. Would he actually believe her? Yugito shook her head. I wanted to know where B is. And if you are willing, could you help me out for tomorrow? With Naruto and Minato. With having seen so much of Naruto's abilities, Minato wasn't happy that Naruto had made it to the finals. To him, he felt that it was something that was to be expected. He would have been disappointed actually if Naruto had not made it through, but he was just okay that the redhead had made it. Not proud though. Naruto would probably tell him something as this wasn't something that one could be proud of. It was a small achievement that needed no celebration. I bet with Yugito that I would give her the formula of your Hiraishin if she beats me in the finals. Naruto said. Minato widened his eyes. What? Why would you do that, Naruto? The Yondaime demanded. That was something that he could not allow Kumagakure to have. They would do everything in their power to make sure that Naruto loses. There is a suspicion that she is a Jinchuriki, but nothing concrete. To win, she will give everything and the Raikage will be sure to ensure that she does, even if that means revealing that she is a Jinchuriki. The revelation is a small price to pay for the Hiraishin, Naruto explained lightly. Besides, if I lose, I quit being a shinobi. A grand stage like this is made for me. Should I lose, then I'm good as dead. Do you understand what I am saying, father? Minato nodded. Your whole life is also on the line. I have much to lose if I face defeat, Naruto said. Defeat was unacceptable. He could not accept defeat at such a grand stage. He had sworn that he would never lose a match again. This only gave him more motivation to win the match and test himself against someone who will be willing to do anything in order to win the battle. All odds will be against him and Naruto would still win. This was his beginning after all. He could not afford to embarrass himself and the name of the Uzumaki in front of the elemental nations. People from all over were watching and he would shine. This was his chance to start the journey towards leaving his father's shadow. You do know that the Raikage will be willing to cheat to get you to lose. By that I mean being poisoned, setting you up for tougher matches, the matches for tomorrow had yet to be drawn. Participants would know of their opponents tomorrow. That would give the man the chance to cheat. I have calculated for that as well, Naruto said calmly. Well, that depends if he actually believes that I will actually hand over the jutsu. We don't even know if Yugito will tell the man about it. Besides, I don't actually own the jutsu to make such bets. Naruto said smiling. Minato appeared to think about it. A bet is a bet, but Kumagakure has been dishonest before, and as you said, the jutsu is not yours. Even if you made the bet, the jutsu is not yours to give. Since Kumagakure has been dishonest before, you can use that against them. Minato smiled. That's not very nice, Naruto, Minato said. The redhead shrugged. Blame Fugaku, he said with a shrug. What happens if you win? Minato asked curiously. Naruto stood up, smiling at his father. Yugito goes on a date with me. Huh? Minato stared for a moment before speaking once again. You mean to tell me you bet the Hirashing over a date? A date? Are you out of your mind, Naruto? Naruto just shrugged. She is worth it. Minato sighed. I really should be freaking out about this, but my confidence in you eases the worries. But if you have to use S-rank jutsu in order, you will have to. Do you understand me, Naruto? I don't care if you have to expose your abilities, you have to win. No matter what. The Yondaime Hokage was very serious about it. There will be no need to even expose everything, Naruto said. He smiled, eyes closed. Let us make a deal, father. When you smile like that, I will feel like I am making a deal with the devil. Minato could not believe that he was saying that to his own son, but he was sure no one would blame him for saying something like that. No, I'm not making a deal with you. Disappointing, Naruto said, with a shake of his head. Fine, I'm heading out. Why don't we go together? The Raikage won't discuss anything else with me other than the Chunin exams. I thought I would get a chance to talk to him about our relationship with them. But he doesn't appear to be interested, Minato said with a frown on his lips. That reminds me, Naruto started. Kumagakure apparently knows that I killed that man. The redhead said as he walked towards the exit, with his father right behind him. The following morning, the Yondaime Raikage looked around the contestants, counting them as they were supposed to be 12 of them, but he could only see 11 of them. He would not have complained if they were less, but he couldn't cut them at this number. Some matches would be quick but the number of matches would entertain the crowd, and once things were over, everyone would leave his village and he would be going back to the drawing board. The man could clearly see that there was one contestant who wasn't present. They were all supposed to be present at 8, and now it was close to 8:30. The spectators had already gathered in stadium. The Raikage looked at the man on his right hand. Do you know where the missing finalist is? Probably still at the hotel, the man responded calmly. Should I go and call him? The Raikage shook his head. Leave them be, he said, turning to face the finalists. I won't bother telling you the reason Chunin exams are held like this. If you don't know, go ask your sensei or your Kage when you get back to your village, the man stated calmly. I can only say that go out knowing that you're representing your village. The man nodded to the proctor before walking away. I am Dodai, and I will be the proctor for the finals, the man said. The reason you were not drawn yesterday to know your opponent is because in the shinobi world, you won't always know who you will face. As a shinobi, you must be able to think on your feet and be ready for anything. In this exam, we won't be assessing your skills only, but how well you adapt to the unexpected and how you fight an opponent you know nothing about. It was a tough test, but it was one that was necessary. Enemies were availing themselves in all corners, and you would not know anything about them, but find out more about their abilities and how to counter them during the battle. Situations like that existed, and as shinobi who wanted to become Chunin, they had to show the mindset and aptitude to be able to think with a kunai at the back of their heads. Having said that, you don't necessarily have to win the finals, but you just have to show that you're skilled enough to be a Chunin and possess the right mindset to be a Chunin. It isn't just skills that make you a Chunin, but the mind as well. Becoming a Chunin means that you might end up leading a team. You must be able to lead those under you. At that moment, Naruto walked into the room, hands inside his pockets. He didn't say anything, but just leaned against a wall, eyes closed with his ears open to hear everything being said. You were told that your secondary flag will determine your first round opponent. Dodai continued on. But in some cases there would be an exemption to that rule. There are cases in which you have been exempted from the rule. The first rounds will have 4 matches. That will be our quarterfinal. 4 matches. But there are 12 of us. Shouldn't there be 6 matches? It wouldn't do, Dodai said. There should have been just 8 or 16 of you to make it possible to draw the matches. The first rounds will have 3 contestants battling at each other. The winner of each round will move to the semi-final. We have already drawn each rounds, the man said, pointing at a board behind him. This will be how it is. Prepare yourself. Once time comes, you will be called. Naruto looked at the board. He was pitted against Iwagakure Shinobi. Well, that was to be expected. He had taken the flag of Iwagakure Genins. He wasn't going to complain about that. But the fact that his route to the final avoided facing Kumo's Yugito made him raise an eyebrow. It couldn't have been set up like that, could it? Even if it was, who would complain about it? The majority of the spectators were Kumo people, and they would love nothing but to see the best of their genins take center stage. If Naruto lost a match, the 2 Kumo genins would face each other. Talk about a fixed drawing board. Oh well, Naruto wasn't complaining. It would make his heroics even more pleasant to talk about. Kage Booth. I'm surprised that you bothered to show your face to my village even after you just sent weaklings to the exams. Sakikage, the Yondaime Reikage stated as he sat down between the Sandaime Sakikage and Yondaime Hokage. Onoki turned to the Reikage for a moment before looking away. It was amazing that Minato could be so calm when he was surrounded by enemies. There was no doubt that he didn't get along with both Kumagakure and Iwagakure, and yet he was still looking so calm and perfectly fine. If anything, it made Onoki curse the blonde Hokage for his confidence. If there was a chance, this was as good as any to get rid of the Kage and his brat. The Sandaime Sakikage turned his eyes towards the spectators before responding to the Reikage. This was simply the best of what my village could offer. The old man. You can disagree if you know something that I don't. Sent the old man a look before looking towards Minato. But before he could say anything, Onoki beat him to the punch. It is nothing more insulting than what he has done. I call it an insult to just send one mere genin to fight against all other contestants. Are you simply saying that your son is enough against everyone else? Minato merely smiled. If he wins, will there be a need for me to answer the question? The Reikage scoffed at Naruto's chances of winning. He cannot and will not win, the man said firmly. I heard that he's also made an interesting bet with Yugito. Minato just laughed. Yes, he told me about it, the Yondaime Hokage said. I have to admit, I was rather shocked by it myself. I propose we make a wager, the Reikage said. What assurances do you give me that you will stick to it? I remember what you still tried to do, Minato stated in a calm tone. Merely shrugged carelessly. A thing of the past, he said. If Yugito wins the final match, no matter what happens, Konoha and Kumagakure will not go to war with each other, and even if you go to war with Iwa, we will not participate. This of course will only be applicable for the next 5 years. Minato narrowed his eyes towards the Reikage before staring at the empty space ahead of him. I didn't think you'd be willing to do something to avoid war with Konoha. Your recent actions have done nothing but provoke us into action. Had it not been me who was Hokage, Konoha would have surely attacked this village. Onoki snorted. Unlikely, he said mildly. The leaf has become nothing more than a shell of its former self. You appear as if you fear war. Are you afraid that going into war will knock you down from your glorious seat? Minato shook his head, still smiling. Sakikage-sama, I have not forgotten, Minato said calmly. We have our reasons for doing things the way we are doing them. You don't need to understand them, but those who have wronged us will have to eventually face us. Onoki appeared amused. I didn't take you for that kind of a person. That kind of a person? You misunderstood me, Minato said calmly. What you must understand is that I have not spoken of retribution or vengeance. I merely said those who have wronged us will have to face us. For what reason, I did not specify. Konoha does not fear anything. It has never feared anyone and it never will. Anyone thinking we choose not to ignite the flames of war because we have become weak is delusional. The Yondaime Hokage paused for a moment as he turned his attention towards the wreckage once more. Then, stared at Minato for a moment. Regardless of what one would think, it was hard not to realize that Minato was damn serious about what he was saying. It was a lot more like a promise of pain from a man had the power to cause the pain. It was a bold statement from the Hokage. I have my reasons. You don't have to know them, said with a shrug of his shoulders. I see. Minato paused for a moment as he thought of a few things. I will agree on the wager if you agree that you will no longer attempt what you tried with the Hyuga, and if Naruto wins you will travel to the Hidden Leaf or send someone who will offer apologies, as well as compensation for the grief you have caused. That is a little too much. Minato shrugged. Considering that you are the ones who have given us every reason to fight you, I'd say that agreeing to your terms on my part is being generous. But if you think your genin cannot win, then we can skip this farce of a wager. The Yondaime Hokage said with a thin smile. That will be done, was quick to say. Excellent, Minato said, clasping his hands. There is one thing though. If you go back on your word and do anything traitorous, Yugito ni will be taken by Konoha, either by force or free will. Any acceptable method that will hold you accountable will do. After the exams, I will let the feudal lords know that Tsukikage is a witness. The Raikage had not been planning on anything dangerous with Konoha, and knowing the kind of person Minato was, he was sure the Hokage would merely keep his distance for the duration of the 5 years and things would be a little cool enough for him to work on strengthening his village's forces. Shall we shake on it? Arena. The first match pitted Naruto against two genins from Iwagakure. In Naruto's eyes they were weak. It may have been right that Iwagakure actually sent weak teams into the exams just for the sake of having their presence in the village. It was a good opportunity to show off, but the village opted against showing off in favor of keeping their cards to themselves. Oh well, it couldn't be helped. Since his opponents were weak, Naruto wasn't going to waste time with them. He was going to crush them since he didn't have a reason to be cautious with them. They could not threaten him or his glory-seeking hands. Contestants ready? The proctor asked, receiving nods of approvals from the genins. Begin. Naruto wasn't surprised when his opponents actually decided to charge at him together as if it was 2-on-1. It was okay, he had thought they would do something like that. They were both from the same village and he was the enemy. That didn't concern him though. Naruto waited until they neared him before making a move. The first genin attempted to punch him on the face, while the other came on his left hand, launching a right punch towards his head as well. Naruto caught the punch of the latter with his right hand and dodged the former's punch by moving slightly to the left while taking a single step forward to flank the genin side. Naruto didn't let go of the hand he was holding as a sickening snap rounded off around the arena, followed by a cringe-worthy cry of pain. Naruto had brutally stomped on the right leg, just around the knee, of the genin whose punch he had dodged. His right foot crashed, brutally snapping the leg. With his bone snapping causing the leg to bend humanly impossible, the genin cried out in pain. Naruto pushed the boy whose hand he was holding to the side. The movement had been quick and meant to make the genin off balance, and he succeeded in doing so. Without wasting time, he flashed away from his position and appeared on the left side of the genin he had pushed away. A swinging high foot crashed into the genin's temple. The kick sent the genin towards his teammates, sending them crashing towards the wall of the arena. And then there was silence. The match was over. Naruto refused to smile, but he was happy. That was what he called victory. A victory when the opponent stood a chance of winning and had some good shots wasn't satisfying. He liked total domination over his opponents and nothing else. The proctor stepped up, seeing that the two Iowa genins could no longer continue. Not to mention one had a broken leg. He winced just imagining having his leg broken like that. Winner, Uzumaki Naruto. The other matches came in and went. Yugito made it to her semi-final in a show of speed and power. Her opponents were easily taken care of and made it to the final round. The other semi-final was against Naruto and another blonde Cloud Genin. Naruto looked at the person in front of him with his head tilted to the side. Kumagakure certainly had some interesting blondes. This Samui was Yugito's teammate. Why hadn't he noticed her back then? Was it because he had been told that the latter was the strongest of the pack, and being his old self he had simply ignored her in favor of Yugito? The redhead smiled at the blonde. You know, if there was a choice, I'd rather not have to fight such a beautiful girl. Samui didn't appear impressed. She just stared at his form for a few moments before unsheathing her sword. Shall we? Cold Naruto said to himself before taking out his sword. There wasn't any other word that left his lips as he waited for Samui to make the first move. It was his policy to allow the opponent he didn't know anything about to make the first move. Samui watched the redhead for a few moments. He didn't look like he was going to attack her. He had even taken a defensive stance. He was inviting her to attack him. It didn't really matter either way. She had already won her first match, and she just had to fight with her all in this match, and also fight using her head. It would be enough to earn her a promotion. The blonde Cloud Genin calmed her features before dashing towards the redhead. She had been quick to halt her fast movements just in front of him and swing her sword with her right hand in downward slash. Naruto held out his sword horizontally with just his right hand and blocked the slash, before he used his physical prowess to push the genin away. Even though he pushed Samui away, Naruto didn't attack. His half-opened eyes just watched the blonde with a look of concentration. It was obvious that he wasn't just looking at her, but calculatedly observing her. Samui was forced to do the attacking once again. She darted towards the redhead with the tip of her blade cutting through the ground as she ran. When she neared him, she lifted it up, picking up sand. She sent the sand towards Naruto's face, causing him to jump back to avoid being temporarily blinded. The moment Naruto landed on the ground, Samui flashed just behind him, swinging her sword with both her hands. She was swinging her sword horizontally just above Naruto's waist level, intending to cut through his body. Naruto reacted by jumping up. He did so remarkably before flipping whilst above Samui and went on to land behind her. He was not allowed to make the first move as the blonde spun around clockwise with her sword cleaving through the air as it traveled towards Naruto's chest. Naruto held out his sword in a vertical position, its tip facing down, before there was a clash of metal with Samui's sword. With his defense holding firm, Naruto moved his right foot through the ground, sweeping it towards Samui's. The Cloud Genin reacted quickly by jumping above the ground. She held her sword firmly whilst still above the ground, and as gravity started to pull her down, she did a powerful downward swing. Naruto didn't attempt to block the swing. He just moved back slightly, and allowed the sword cut through the air just in front of him before he twisted around. When Samui's sword hit the ground, Naruto's right foot quickly slammed into her forehead, sending her flying backwards. She was able to recover quickly as she flipped several times in mid-air before landing on the ground in a kneeled position. Naruto was already upon her when she did so. He flashed just above the ground, his right foot traveling towards her forehead once again. It was instantaneous, but Samui was able to slam an explosive on Naruto's foot as it hit her on her forehead. The kick sent her flying and she winced as she crashed into the wall of the arena with her back. But she managed to keep her eyes focused on Naruto. Naruto saw the tag, and it was going to set off. It would take his foot with it. The redhead threw his blade into the air as he created a seal-less clone. The clone appeared in a puff of smoke just behind him. Boom! The spectators waited with bated breath as the fiery explosion of flames rocked through the arena. There was only one Naruto, who was blasted away by the explosion. He didn't look particularly harmed, just a few cuts on his clothes. The crowd roared in cheers, seeing that it was remarkable that he had been able to get out of the explosion alive and without any physical damage. The redhead landed on the ground, on his knees before straightening up. He looked up into the air for a few moments before walked over to the center of the arena to take his sword. As he kneeled down to pick it up, Samui's left foot stomped on the blade, while her right cut through the air heading towards his forehead. Naruto pushed chakra into the palm of his right hand and blurred his hand towards the kick, grabbing it with full force. Still holding Samui's foot, Naruto straightened up, smiling with his eyes closed. For a moment, I thought you were trying to kill me. If I hadn't been able to replace myself with the clone in the split second the explosive tag went off, there would have been massive damages. Samui just stared, but really, she was unnerved by his smile. What if I was? I tried to kill you as well, Naruto said in a whisper. You're fast, but not fast enough. I have not looked at your taijutsu skills, but I think you're holding out on me. Either way, we must end this before it becomes dangerous for me. The first thought that came into Samui's mind was making some distance between her and the redhead. He was speaking dangerously, and he'd spoken as if he could take her down. She couldn't make the distance she wanted because he was holding her right foot firmly. She tried pulling, but he didn't budge. This forced her to use the foot Naruto was holding as means to balance herself as she tried lunge her free foot towards his left shoulder. But the moment she made that movement, Naruto pushed her right foot away, making her lose her balance. The redhead kicked his sword from the ground, bringing it up to him. Samui saw that she had to act. As Naruto's right hand grabbed the hilt of his sword, she brought out her own, and it held it firmly with its tip facing up. A second later, Naruto's sword clashed with hers with so much power that she was forced to stumble backwards and eventually fall down the ground as she had already been off balance before she even tried to block his swing. This time Naruto didn't watch her. He attacked her by throwing his sword towards her head. Samui felt relieved when the blade whizzed past her right ear, embedding on the ground. It had just been a couple of inches away from her. Before she could move, Naruto flashed above her and slammed his right in her gut so brutally that she cried while trying to push away his foot. The redhead didn't even seem concerned. His left hand just moved towards his sword as he leaned over to her face. I don't like showing mercy to my opponents, but this isn't the dance of death. Do you mind waving the white flag? Samui suppressed the urge to frown. She hadn't done much, nothing to weaken him. He hadn't done much in this battle, and the closest she came to harming him was with the explosive tag, and that seemed to have only made him want to end things quickly. She gritted her teeth. This hadn't been a battle. She couldn't give up now, not when she had yet to give her everything. I refuse, the blonde said firmly before releasing lightning from her hands, which were holding Naruto's right foot. The moment the lightning started to course through the redhead's leg, going through his body, Naruto made the distance, which was what she wanted. Samui quickly got up on her feet and lunged towards Naruto. It took just a couple of seconds before she could reach him head-on. Sticking her left foot firmly on the ground, she raised her right, swinging it towards the redhead's upper body, but Naruto jumped back to avoid her kick. Samui was on the attack once again, and this time, she appeared slightly above the ground and spun around to gain more power and speed in her kick. The kick was aimed at the side of Naruto's head. As her foot neared him, Naruto ducked under the kick, avoiding it completely. Before Samui could make another move, Naruto had moved faster than her, while in the crouched position below her. The redhead grabbed her left foot and forcefully slammed her into the ground, creating a small boom as her body crashed into the unforgiving ground. Naruto didn't stop there, he still picked her up, twisting around to gain momentum. He twisted her around in mid-air a couple of times before he sent her crashing into the wall of the arena with so much force that there was a loud boom when she crashed with her face. The blonde's crash left a large dent on the wall as she slid down the ground. The proctor looked on for a moment before stepping into the arena. He could announce the match as over. It was obvious that the redhead hadn't been fighting wholeheartedly. It almost seemed as if he was forced. Samui wasn't out cold, but it was best to just end it. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. The crowd's reaction was a little subdued. He could understand that a little since the match hadn't been all that exciting for Kumo people. Perhaps if it had been a full-blown outright, they would be cheering for the entertainment. Well, the next match was certainly going to be interesting, and it would certainly be entertaining. He could say it was a little unfair since they were not going to take a break for the final match, but he had to do as instructed. Next match, the final. Yugito Ni vs Naruto Uzumaki. A confident-looking Yugito stepped into the arena as her home crowd cheered for her. Naruto looked calm. He even had the time to look up into the calm sky. Things hadn't been as difficult as he thought it would be. Everything has just been a little too easy. He was beginning to feel slightly disappointed. Had Itachi been faced with the same situation? If not, there was really nothing one could be proud of in this picture. Contestants ready? Yugito nodded, but it took a couple of seconds for the words to register in Naruto's mind, and the redhead just smiled in response. Begin. That was the magic word needed for Yugito to make a move. The blonde Jinchuriki hadn't wasted time in lunging towards her opponent in some ridiculous burst of speed. She was upon the redhead in a moment of a second. Yugito swung her right foot, which was raised high towards Naruto's left shoulder. The redhead brought out his left hand and positioned it on the side of his shoulder as Yugito's kick reached him. Upon the connecting with his guard, the kick caused Naruto to slide sideways under the force of the kick. The blonde didn't waste time to be on the attack again. She twisted clockwise while simultaneously jumping towards Naruto. She flashed above the redhead, her left foot swinging towards the right side of his head. Naruto brought out his right hand and held it firmly on the side. The defense managed to block the left-footed kick, but Yugito wasn't done. While still in midair, she swung her right foot towards Naruto's head. As he did with the left, Naruto blocked the kick. This time, he suppressed a wince when the kick collided with his hand. It had hurt. Yugito packed more power behind her than he had anticipated. Seeing that all her attempts had been blocked, Yugito moved her head towards Naruto's, attempting to headbutt him, but the redhead jumped back slightly to avoid the blow. As soon as Naruto touched down, he lunged towards Yugito, who had yet to hit the ground. He reached her slightly on her right side before he twisted around anti-clockwise, returning with a high right kick aimed at his opponent's temple. Upon seeing the kick, Yugito crossed her hands in front of her and blocked the kick. Despite her defense holding firm, she was still pushed back by the power behind the kick. Yugito looked up from her defense as the crowd cheered. Well, that was an interesting beginning to the match. One worthy of being a final to the Chunin exams, but this was still nothing. You have a habit of observing your opponents, even if you land a hit, Yugito said to Naruto, who was standing a distance away. I have been watching you, you rarely make a follow-up move. Most of the time you're defending. Naruto tilted his head to the side with his eyes closed. He could almost play his hands like a conductor and lead the cheers and roars from the crowd that were like music to his ears. This was the kind of an atmosphere he liked. It was the kind of the spotlight that was created for him. He opened his eyes and looked at Yugito before responding to her statement. I prefer not to make unnecessary moves, and I like observing my opponents. It becomes easy to break them apart when I know how they move. Everyone always hides something in battle. Don't think that you can always discover something about your opponents. Wouldn't you say that is the same thing for me? Naruto asked calmly. While defending, I hardly show any of my skills. Can you say you know anything or everything about me? Yugito blinked. The thought hadn't come to mind, but he did have a point. He was right. Even so, being defensive wasn't going to win him a fight. In the flip side of things, he wasn't the only one holding back something. Even his opponent would be holding out on him. The blonde Jinchuriki shook her head before darting towards Naruto once again. Then she suddenly blurred out of his sight, appearing behind him while above the ground, her right foot cleaving through the air as it went towards the back of his head. Naruto didn't need to turn back in order to avoid it. He just dropped to the ground and landed on his hands. He quickly used them as balance before he flipped, turning to face the blonde. Raiton Lightning Bolt. Yugito released a bolt of lightning that sped towards the redhead before he could do anything. Naruto shined out of the way as he stood a distance away. He frowned when he realized bits of the lightning had caught him. It hadn't damaged him. The problem was that he couldn't move. Yugito suddenly flashed in front of him, her nails extended ridiculously and cut through his chest in a fast slash. The blonde didn't stop there. She twisted around while jumping above the ground. She lashed a high and powerful kick straight into Naruto's forehead. The kick hit brutally and picked him up from the ground. However, before he could be sent flying, Yugito grabbed his right foot and slammed him into the ground. She did so much more brutally than what Naruto did in the previous match. And as Naruto did to Samui, she picked him up from the ground before twisting him in midair, before she sent him crashing into the wall so brutally that there was a loud boom when he crashed. Yugito did not rest, she lunged towards the redhead intent of finishing up things. As soon as she reached Naruto, who was plastered against the wall, she drove a right punch towards his head, but Naruto dodged the punch by tilting his head to the side. The Kumo Jinchuriki looked into Naruto's eyes, they were cold, and he seemed very displeased. Before she could do anything, he grabbed the hand that had tried to punch him and got off the wall, eyes staring into hers. "I really dislike taking hits," he said, the dislike clearly evident in his tone. The moment he said that, chains burst out before wrapping around her body. She knew what was going to come next, and she wasn't going to allow it. As far as she was concerned, this was Naruto's finishing move. She quickly clasped her hands before releasing powerful bolts of lightning throughout her body. The lightning traveled through the chains before literally shocking Naruto. He may not have cried, but he did grit his teeth as he allowed Yugito to be free by dispersing the chains. "Do you want to give up, or shall we continue?" Yugito asked, much to the roars of her home crowd. Naruto looked at his hands, frowning for a second. He looked at Yugito with partially opened eyes before speaking in a calm tone. "I guess this happens when you focus on defending rather than attacking. I didn't expect you to counter my chains in this way. I should have. I guess this is because of the lack of real battle experience. In any case, I shall commence my brutality." There was something in his tone that just made Yugito jump away from him with a cold chill running down her spine. Kage Booth. "Your son isn't as impressive as I thought he would be," said with a frown. Still, Minato hadn't looked concerned about a minute ago. He had been just smiling, even though when Naruto was being put in the defensive. What made it curious now was the fact that even though Yugito had evidently fled from Naruto, the blonde Hokage looked slightly concerned. What could be more worrying now? Or was he perhaps finally grasping that his son was going to lose? "I can't agree with that statement," Onoki said, with a frown of his own. "He hasn't been fighting since the tournament begun. In the first round, he merely brutalized his opponents, and in the second round, he played the defensive, and even now. It is hard for you to notice, but I have been a shinobi for far too long to be deceived." "What are you saying?" demanded. "That hardly matters now," Minato intervened. Even though Naruto liked the spotlight, he wasn't the one to show off his skills. But when that was not an option, he didn't like getting those kinds of hits. It was safe to say that since Yugito had come close to a win, Naruto was going to be a little vengeful, and that worried the Yondaime Hokage. Be ready to stop the match at any moment. Back with the fight. Naruto took a couple of steps towards Yugito while doing hand seals. He didn't stop walking as he released a fire jutsu. Katan, Gauga Mekyaku, the jutsu was released with ease, but the flames were still as intense and big enough to cover a large portion of the arena. Yugito flashed towards her left to avoid the intense flames. She was sure if she had allowed the flames to touch her, she wouldn't have been breathing. Hell, she could feel intensity of the flames even though she was away from them. So Naruto could use fire-based attacks of this level. That was beyond what a normal genin could do, and if he could release a jutsu of that level, then there was no telling if he could use other attacks. Yugito looked back to Naruto's position. She widened her eyes when she felt a cold breath on her neck. The blonde quickly twisted around when she did. Naruto grabbed her by her face and lifted her up slightly. Yugito only made one attempt to break free, but when she realized that she could not escape, she drove her right knee towards Naruto's chest. But the redhead caught it with his free hand before brutally slamming her into the ground. Yugito winced as her back crashed into the ground. She left relieved that there was no sickening sound of something breaking. As Naruto leaned down to grab her once again, Yugito kicked out, forcing the redhead to jump away. But as he was doing that, a chain burst out and grabbed her foot before lifting her from the ground. Yugito was twisted around the air a couple of times before she was slammed down the ground, brutally. There was a resounding boom as she crashed down, forming a human-sized crater. Yugito elicited a loud cry when her foot started to burn, with the chain holding her now engulfed with crimson flames. Once again, Naruto lifted Yugito from the ground and threw her up into the air. The chain then wrapped around his right foot and Naruto jumped up slightly while twisting to gain some momentum. As gravity started to pull Yugito down, Naruto hit her on her chest with his right foot. There was a sickening sound of bones breaking when the kick connected with Yugito's chest. Much more sickening was how she crashed into the wall of the arena. She crashed on her back, breaking the hard wall. Yet remarkably, she wasn't out cold. While bleeding from her mouth, she slid onto her knees, breathing heavily. She could still go on. Yugito summoned bits of her Bajoa's chakra. Even though it was not visible, Naruto felt it and frowned. The chakra would potentially heal her wounds and give her a major power boost. That was something that he was not looking forward. Yugito straightened herself before spitting out blood from her mouth. She then disappeared. Naruto's eyes caught on when Yugito suddenly flashed in front of him without a sound. But the Bajor chakra she was emitting was certainly doing its oppressive job. When the blonde Jinchuriki attacked, it happened in an instant. She suddenly spun around while raising her right root high. She did so to gain more speed and power and kick. Naruto did enough to put on a haste defense to try to block the flying kick that was aimed at his face. The kick connected with his defense, and although it failed to break through, it still forced off the ground, sent him flying backwards, crashing towards the wall of the arena. To avoid hitting the wall with his back, Naruto flipped several times as the momentum carried him backwards. He summoned his chakra chains before crash landing on the wall with both his feet, his chakra chains piercing through the wall for balance as he was sideways on the wall and in a crouched position. Nezumi Kidama. Naruto looked up and saw multiple dark blue objects speeding towards him. He pushed chakra into his knees and formed a protective barrier around him with two chains before he took off and burst, nearly tearing the wall as he did. Two mouse balls crashed into the chains he had put around himself before they exploded. As the explosion occurred, Naruto was forced to land on the ground before jumping into the air once again. The mouse balls followed him into the air. Naruto flipped upside down with 6 of his chains facing all directions. He then took out 6 kunais before he suddenly spun around in quick motion, while throwing the kunais in different directions. The chains around him spun around like a fan before they burst into flames. A small tornado of flames formed around Naruto, creating a powerful barrier of flames. The mouse balls reached him and crashed into the defensive flames before bursting out into blue flames mixed with red. The flames created a dome above the ground, before an unharmed Naruto suddenly started falling down the ground. He landed on both his feet. The moment he did so, Yugito flashed above him, her hands covered his dark blue chakra. She held them together and slammed them towards Naruto's head. The chains sped above the redhead, creating a quick defense. There was a burst of blue and crimson flames when Yugito's attack collided with Naruto's chains, and the ground shattered as Naruto's knees bent slightly under the strain. The redhead pushed back forcefully, forcing the blonde to jump away from him. Naruto sped towards his opponent. When he was closer, he jumped up into the air and brought out his chains. As gravity started to pull him down, he attempted to slam the chains towards Yugito, but the blonde blurred out of sight as the chains crashed on the ground. Yugito suddenly flashed in front of Naruto, her body covered in blue chakra. Her right fist moved in blinding speeds before smashing into his face. The punch was so powerful that it sent Naruto crashing into the wall of the arena like a bullet. There was a loud boom when Naruto crashed into the wall. Yugito didn't let up, even though the redhead was covered in debris and dust. She lunged towards him, and she reached him quickly. Her eyes slightly widened when Naruto's right hand snaked through the dust and grabbed her by her face. It had happened so quickly that she didn't have time to react. Naruto twisted around as he slammed her into the wall he had been plastered into. The moment Yugito crashed into the wall, chakra chains pierced through the wall just around her, blocking her escape. Naruto's knee slammed into Yugito's gut with so much force that the blonde let out a cry as she spat out saliva from her mouth. Naruto wasn't done. He followed this by slamming his right fist into her chest. Yugito bit her lip when she felt a snap in her chest. He had just broken a bone in her ribcage. If she did not get out of this trap, she wasn't going to come out of it in a good condition. She didn't get to make a move as Naruto once again slammed his fist into her chest. No one heard the sickening crack that followed then because the wall behind crashed in a boom, having held back enough. Yugito coughed up blood from her mouth before she quickly acted. She exhaled a stream of blue flames from her mouth on point-blank range. The flames exploded when they crashed into Naruto, creating a dome of flames. Yugito got her time to escape, flashing away from the blonde. She landed a distance away on her knees, breathing labored, and watched as the flames died down. Naruto turned around frowning, with his clothes burnt. He then held his hand seals. Yugito looked at the ground, seeing it glow with marks all over. She looked around and saw that the marks were originating from the kunes Naruto had thrown earlier. Naruto suddenly disappeared in what appeared to be a flash of red, but it had been a burst of flames. The movement had just happened so fast that it appeared like it was a flash. He appeared right behind Yugito. It is apparent that the extra chakra is giving you an advantage. I really shouldn't be fighting a Jinchuriki, but that is alright, the redhead stated calmly. I will request the kunai I gave you when I come for my date. It was purely out of instinct that Yugito was able to dodge a chain that burst forth from the ground under her. If she had not dodged it, it would have pierced through her chin going up. The moment she landed a couple of feet away, Naruto was already on one knee, his right palm on the ground. Two chains burst forth from the ground, piercing through her foot. Yugito cried out in pain as the thing went through her bone as if it was nothing. She was put into more horrors when Naruto suddenly flashed on her left side and slammed his foot around her knee. Their loud snap echoed around the stadium when Naruto broke Yugito's leg in brutal fashion. What followed then was another cry of pain that silenced the crowd as the cry was cringeworthy. Naruto took out his sword and held it firmly before it burst into flames. But before he could do anything, the proctor jumped into the ring right behind Yugito. He effectively stopped the match. Yugito Ni is unable to continue. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Chapter 12. Hana never thought that she would actually be on a mission with the Naruto. She felt somewhat excited over the chance to do a mission with the redhead. He was after all a shinobi who was known in all corners of the elemental nations. It wasn't because his father was the Hokage, but because he was a powerful shinobi who has accomplished so many things in his life. More to that, he was also a good-looking man. That was something a girl always looked at into a man. It was especially pleasant since the redhead carried himself well and was generally liked. He did treat people who smiled at him with kindness after all. It was people who treated him with kindness, because it has been known that Naruto wasn't fond of anyone who didn't like him. Hell, his enemies were treated with some cruelty that had many question if the famed Uzumaki was actually a good person or not. In the few times Hana had seen him, he was conversing with either Kurena or Anko, and each time he looked like a pleasant person. Hana steeled herself as the redhead strolled towards her. She tried hushing her partner who was growling when the Uzumaki grew closer to them. Her partner was usually well-mannered, so it was strange for him to be this rude to someone on first sight. The redhead didn't look like a dangerous person even. Arriving at the village gates, Naruto smiled at the woman who was waiting for him. He kept his eyes closed as he spoke. You must be the person accompanying me to this emergency. Hana nodded. Her partner now barked and growled at the redhead, looking as if it was ready to jump on him. Hana patted the dog in effort to calm it down, but it didn't stop it. It was almost as if it was barking at an enemy who needed to be torn apart. She smiled nervously at Naruto. Sorry, he isn't usually like this, she said apologetically to the redhead. It would have been a little embarrassing if there had been a lot of people around. At least it was just the gate guards. It is fine, Naruto said with a smile before kneeling down. He didn't say a word, but just opened his eyes slightly and looked at the dog for a second before the dog dragged its tail between its legs as it zipped its mouth shut. See? The redhead said, with his head tilted to the side. Hana felt fear in her partner. What had Naruto done? Was he that much of a scary person that with just one look he could make the prideful beast before her squirm like a puppy? We should head out, Naruto said to Hana, sounding a bit hurried. I didn't introduce myself, did I? Uzumaki Naruto, he said holding out his right hand. Hana looked at the bandaged right hand for a long second before she took it and shook it. Inuzuka Hana, she said. Naruto's smile widened slightly. First time I am being accompanied by such a pleasant person in a mission. I hope to get to know more of you. After the mission, of course. I have a strict policy about conducting business first before pleasure. Hana didn't know how to respond as the redhead led the way out of the village. She could believe him about not doing any missions with a pleasant someone. The redhead didn't do teams. In fact, since he became Jonin, he has consistently done solo missions, and only partnered with a handful of people. It was mostly Kakashi and Itachi. There was a rumor that those who did missions with him when he was still Chunin never really wanted to do it again. Details were never dished out, but whatever it was, Anko seemed to like it. Anything that was liked by that woman wasn't something tasty. Hana hoped it wasn't anything bad. What is the mission about? Hana asked as she caught up to Naruto. The redhead took out a cloth and handed it to her. I asked for a sensor to track this person. He stole some information from Konoha. He is suspected to be a spy from Iwagakure. We have to chase after him and either eliminate or drag him back to the village. Hana wondered why this mission hadn't been rushed if they were going to be chasing after a person. They shouldn't have even wasted time at the gate. The redhead had said it was an emergency and that was what she had been told by the Amu who tracked her down and had her head to the village gates for an important mission with Naruto. Hana sniffed the cloth before she allowed her partner to sniff it as well. She was surprised that they were on the right direction. The scent had definitely passed around here. It was faint, but she could sense it. She guessed this is why they called her. Lead the way if you have the scent, Naruto said, falling back slightly. I was told you were the fastest the Inuzuka could offer at the short notice. In any case, I would advise you run as fast as you can. You can use chakra to increase your speed if you like. If you're tired, I will carry you, he added with a smile. I will do my best, Hana said as he took off through the ground where the scent had traveled. How strong is the target? Chunin at best, Naruto said calmly, running beside Hana. We're likely to encounter enemy shinobi though. Shouldn't I preserve my chakra just in case? Hana asked. If the redhead was telling her to use chakra to increase her speed, it would make her a liability in battle as she would have exhausted her chakra with all the running. She didn't want to be a burden. Her mother had asked her to make a strong impression. Naruto shook his head. There is no need, he said. Your mission is to point the enemy for me, and I will do the elimination. The redhead paused for a moment. Shall we increase the pace? Hana wanted to ask why elimination as he had said that the mission was either to drag the target back to the village or eliminate him. She figured elimination would come if he retrieving was proving to be a difficult task. So why had Naruto chosen elimination? She shook her head and gave in to his request, pumping chakra into her muscles. They ran for a couple of hours and Hana was seriously worn out, but because the person before her didn't look winded at all, she pushed herself to her limits. She could not falter when she knew that someone with important intel was gaining away from them. She didn't want to be the cause of a mission failure, and so she pushed as hard as she could. Hannah felt relieved when the scent grew strong and she realized that the enemy was now closer. They had not lost track of him. She was relieved. She tried telling Naruto, but no word came out of her mouth. She was seriously winded. The redhead motioned for her to stop. Hannah did so. The weariness hit her at full force as he panted harshly with her hands on her knees. It took a few moments for her to recover enough breath to be able to talk to the redhead. Target ahead, she said tiredly. Just move straight. I see, Naruto said before cutting the distance between them. Hannah let out a yelp when Naruto suddenly picked her up and held her bridle style. What are you doing? She managed to stammer out. Naruto tilted his head to the side as if her question confused him. You're tired, and I can't leave you behind. Stopping for you to regain your breath means we allow the enemy to get away, he explained as if it were obvious. Well, it was obvious. Don't worry, I don't mind, he added with a sly smile and eyes halfway opened. For the first time, Hannah saw those crystal blue eyes of his. She was mesmerized for a moment before Naruto suddenly vanished. She didn't feel anything as he sped through the ground with her partner lagging behind him. Hannah allowed her eyes to close as she enjoyed the comfort and a breather. The breeze hitting her body was refreshing, and since it didn't feel like she was being carried by a running person, it allowed her to relax. Everything came to a halt as Naruto stopped and then jumped on a tree branch and gently placed her down. Hannah felt disappointed as her behind touched the not-so-gentle tree branch. Naruto pointed a distance away and Hannah looked. She saw a young man wearing civilian clothes leaning against a tree trunk. He was breathing heavily while holding a scroll close to his chest as if it was his life. Hannah almost felt sorry for him. If he was a spy and now that he was known to Konoha, it was likely that his home village would quietly try to get him killed if he manages to escape Naruto. Being a spy was dangerous business. Why aren't you going after him? Hannah asked, seeing that Naruto had also settled beside her, his closed eyes focused on the young man. I don't know if there are traps around him or not, Naruto responded calmly. Besides, he is likely taking the information to someone. If I make a move, I won't know who and where. That will be a problem. Spies were some strong-willed bastards and didn't really break down when faced with extreme pain. Naruto had dealt with damn spies before, and he knew they were willing to die than give out any information. Pain did break a few, but most were not easily broken. He was feeling a bit merciful today because of the company. He could attempt to break the spy, but he didn't want to scare the Inuzuka. Oh, Hannah blinked as a thought came. So we're going to follow him, she said. But doesn't that make things troubling? If we allow him to meet whoever he is going to meet, it increases the difficulty of the mission. It is risky, especially when we don't know what we are going to meet at the other side. Don't concern yourself with the difficulty, Naruto said nonchalantly. I have accounted for that. Just rest, and we will move when the target moves. Hannah simply nodded and went back to resting her body as she tried to recover her lost chakra and some energy. Who was she to try to talk him into changing his mind? Naruto was the one who specialized in eliminating numbers. That was actually putting it in a nice way. The redhead was best known for slaughter and massacres. When it came to dealing with groups of enemies, or any army if you like, Konoha always sends him with no backup and he always won within a minute, or a couple. He wasn't a one-man army, but a demolisher of armies. One thing that stood out from what people say about him was that he was brutal in battle. Hannah never really believed it. The redhead seemed like a good person, and not the sadistic person people paint him to be in their books. Nobody outside of his circle actually knew how strong he was because anyone who has seen him go all out has never actually lived to tell the tale. There were just a bunch of things that people say about the redhead. Some of them were just ridiculous. Well, Hannah would see the truth today with her own A-. We're moving, Naruto whispered as their target started to move once again. Hana nodded and they tailed the target, keeping a safe distance so that they are not noticed. The pace was not fast as before, so that meant she wasn't burning as much energy as she was before. They tailed the target until they reached the borders of the Earth Country. A dangerous place for Konoha shinobi. Just entering into the country made Hana's hair stand as she knew that it wasn't often that Konoha shinobi entered and left in one piece. Ilagakure shinobi were not fond of them, and the first thing they did when they saw them was simply to attack without saying a word. That was how hostile it was. It was different in other countries though. There's a group of shinobi up ahead, Naruto suddenly said. I would rather you stay here and close your eyes, the redhead added as he took the sword that was placed on a sheath on his back. Hana was curious about that. What was it that he didn't want her to see that he would request that she close her eyes? Hana was sure that he wasn't joking but being actually serious about his request. As he blurred out her presence silently, Hana moved closer as well. She wanted to see. Naruto appeared behind the target using Shunshin. Hello, the redhead greeted with a smile. The young man quickly jumped away in fear as he hadn't sensed anyone behind him. He quickly turned around to face his enemy. He grit his teeth as he came face to face with the flat smile of a monster. Of all the shinobi to pursue him, it had to be this demon. Well, that had been planned. Still, he would have preferred it if the man did not appear. I had a feeling I was being pursued, but it didn't really matter since I knew that their company waiting for me was strong, the young man said, confidently. Still, of all the shinobi, I never thought I would be pursued, you monster. Naruto tilted his head to the side as he responded indifferently, I am sensing some malice. Well, it doesn't matter, he said before blurring out of sight. The Uzumaki appeared in front of the young man. He had traveled so fast that the spy didn't have the time to react. Naruto's left hand grabbed the spy by his face and lifted him up into the air. The grip was so strong that the young felt like he was being gripped by an iron hand. Naruto didn't waste time in swing his sword. The blade cut through the right shoulder, severing the hand off the shoulder. It happened so fast the spy didn't feel a thing until his right hand hit the ground. The hand Naruto cut had been the one holding firm onto the scroll containing the valuable information. This is a thing about spies, you're never strong enough, the redhead said as he flicked his blade, wiping the blood away before he sheathed it. Naruto fluidly switched hands, holding the spy with his right hand. Water prison, he muttered. Water burst out from the palm of his hand, and encased the spy, trapping him a bubble of water. The redhead looked calmly at the spy as he spoke again. Tell me, who are you going to meet? The spy smiled. You're in the Earth Country, and given your past actions, you're not the most favored person here. You won't be leaving this country, the spy said confidently even in his position. But first wave is led by Kuritsuchi, the Sandaime Tsukikage's granddaughter. Well, you will find out the second wave eventually. Naruto's look narrowed slightly. What is that supposed to mean? We knew Konoha would probably send you since you're the fastest behind the Yondaime Hokage. We waited until you returned to the village before moving. Oh, I fell into a trap, Naruto said calmly, and still with a smile. I was feeling a bit merciful today, but since you have gone your way to plot this, I shall reward you. The redhead paused for a moment, tilting his head to the side. What do you think would happen if I were to boil this water to the point where it can melt your skin like acid? How long do you think you can live? I am curious, shall we test it? The moment Naruto said those words, he started pouring Katan chakra into the water. Within a second, steam started to come out of the water as it begun to boil. You cold-hearted monster! The spy shouted as the water began to burn him. The next thing that came out of his mouth was a cry of pain as the water's temperature increased to the point where the blood inside his body started boiling as well. It didn't take too long before his eyes burst out. The water turned red. Naruto canceled the jutsu and looked up for a moment. It was better to get out of here as it was probably unsafe. He was only able to take a couple of steps before he felt was being surrounded by a number of shinobi. Well, it couldn't be helped. He had to fight. Well, Kuretsuchi said, standing atop of a tree branch, with her men surrounding the redhead. What do we have here? You have Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto responded without even looking at the woman. You must be Kuretsuchi. First time meeting the Sandaime Sakikage's granddaughter in battle. Are you going to entertain me, girl? The redhead asked, this time his face looking towards the black-haired, yet his eyes remained closed. I'm not here for you entertainment, I am here to eliminate you, Kuretsuchi said calmly before waving her right hand, motioning for her men to attack while she stayed behind to observe. Naruto unsheathed his sword as around 20 shinobi flashed around his sides, surrounding him. Another unfair battle he was forced to deal with. What was wrong with these people always trying to get the upper hand by ganging up on him? It hasn't worked before, but that didn't mean that it didn't bother him. Before anyone could make a move, Naruto suddenly jumped into the air, before twisting around in great speed as he released multiple kunes, sending them in all directions. All the shinobi were able to dodge the kunes, which embedded on the ground. Naruto didn't mind though. He hadn't been trying to hit them after all. As gravity started to pull him down the ground, he went through hand seals. Earth-style earth spikes. It wasn't Naruto who released the jutsu, it was one of those Ewa shinobi. Large sharp spikes burst out from the ground, rising up a bit tall. One burst forth beneath Naruto, charging towards him. The redhead summoned 6 chakra chains, lit with intense flames. As he was falling down the ground, towards the earth spikes, Naruto slammed the chains into the spikes, crushing them. The demolition of the spikes caused debris to pick up as Naruto landed on the ground. Then he suddenly disappeared in a flash of red. The redhead suddenly appeared behind enemy lines. It all happened so fast that no one actually saw it coming. Naruto's chains suddenly pierced through 6 enemy shinobi from behind. The chains were still engulfed by flames. Before Naruto could do anything, 2 shinobi flashed behind him, with one yelling, "Don't underestimate us." The one who yelled suddenly jumped into the air, while spinning around. He tried to kick the redhead on his head with his right foot. The other slammed his hands into the ground, causing firm earth hands to burst forth from the ground and grab both his feet. Naruto raised his right hand, using his sword as a shield to block the incoming kick. The kick crashed into the side of the sword. Because Naruto was held to the ground, he didn't move an inch even though he struggled to contain the kick that hit his sword. Naruto was put on alert mode. 2 more shinobi flashed on his sides. One appeared in front of him, aiming a right punch towards his forehead with the other coming towards his left side. In response, Naruto raised his left hand, while forming 2 more chains. The chains created a barrier in front of him as the punch neared him. There was a small boom when the punch connected with his barrier. The resounding shockwave caused by the punch caused the hands holding to shatter, and the redhead slid back slightly. A kunai cut through his left hand, cutting through the bandage that was wrapped around it. For a moment, Naruto stood still as the bandages fell down the ground and blood began to leak out of the gash on his left hand. The redhead held single hand seal. Death. He uttered as flames burst through his chains, rushing toward the 6 he had apprehended. The moment the flames hit the targets, they exploded into 6 clouds of intense flames that turned everything within them to ashes. Naruto cracked his neck as the enemy prepared for another wave of attack. 120 seconds, the redhead said automatically like a robot as the chains wrapped around his body. 119 seconds. Say. He disappeared. And the slaughter began. Naruto appeared in front of a kunoichi holding a pair of kodachis. The redhead swung his sword in a downward slash in a fluid and fast motion. The woman reacted instinctively, by raising both her swords, crossing them to form an X-like defense. But Naruto's sword just cut through the swords cleanly, before he slashed across her chest. He followed through by stabbing a kunai through her throat. Before he could move again, a shinobi flashed above him, holding a kunai with both his hands, attempting to stab him. Naruto didn't react to until the kunai hit the defensive jutsu around his body. The man widened his eyes when his kunai failed to pierce through. A chain suddenly pierced through his heart before he was sent sailing towards an incoming shinobi. Naruto disappeared once again, appearing between two enemy shinobi. Two chains burst forth from each side, piercing through both of them. Naruto held his sword firmly before slicing through the shinobi on his right. He spun around, and did the same to the one on his left. A smoke bomb hit him on his back before it exploded, covering him. Naruto held a single seal before slamming his hands on the ground. The chain surrounding his body flashed disappeared, leaving him exposed, but Naruto didn't mind. He knelt down and slammed both his hands to the ground. The ground glowed orange, chain field. All around the redhead, there were cries and piercing sounds. Kuretsuchi widened eyes at the sight before her. The area around Naruto was filled with hundreds of chakra spears that had burst forth from the ground. The moment the glow had occurred, the spears burst forth in ridiculous speed. There was no space for one to escape because the spears covered the entire field around him. What disgusted the black-haired was that the chains had pierced through all her shinobi. Some of them had been torn apart because the chains had pierced almost every inch of their bodies. It didn't take a minute for the chains to become bloodied by the blood of her people. The blood was just all over and everyone else dead. Except for one person who was on his knees, panting slightly. It was just blood and body parts all over. Naruto stood up in that field, and turned around to face her. There was no blood on him except for his own blood, which was leaking from the cut he received earlier. As he walked towards her, the chains cleared path for him, returning to the ground, intense flames burning everything on the ground. While he was still walking out of the execution ground, that was what Kuretsuchi was going to call it, Naruto snapped his fingers, and the chains burst into flames. The fire burnt slowly, but Kuretsuchi could feel the intensity from where she stood. It gave a menacing appearance. For the first time, Kuretsuchi saw Naruto's eyes. They were just cold, and the expression on his face just indifferent. He apparently didn't care about what was happening behind him. He looked up, whilst still holding his sword firmly before he spoke. "I have done enough killing for one day," the redhead said. "Besides, killing you will cause trouble." When he turned to face her, Kuretsuchi felt something. It was fear. He looked like a peaceful person before, but now she was seeing a bloody shinobi. Eyes dead of any emotion, and thick oppressive bloodlust gripped her heart. She could barely feel it, and even so, it frightened her. He may have looked like a peaceful person earlier, leaking no amount of bloodlust, but now she was facing a man. No, that thing was not a man. A monster that could kill her. "Well, I could just cut off your legs and incinerate them. That would ground you for." Naruto trailed off and narrowed his eyes before completely disappearing. A few seconds later, it was Black Ops flashed into the area. "Got away," Kuretsuchi said. "Let us not pursue." Although she would not show it, she was relieved he had fled. She could breathe freely now, and the beat of her heart had slowed down. That was one fearsome opponent. "Are you sure?" Kuretsuchi nodded firmly. "We have lost something but gained something else well. I have come to understand that loathsome ability of his," she said. With Hana could now understand why not much was known about Naruto's ninjutsu abilities. Most people in Konoha knew that Naruto was the greatest katan user in the village, and yet he wasn't the one who used it regularly in battle. The redhead used his ninjutsu when going against one-on-one, but with multitudes he used his Uzumaki fighting style, less ninjutsu, but more of taijutsu, fuinjutsu and kenjutsu. Still, watching that scene, Hana felt sick. She had never such a gruesome image before in her life. She had been a kunoichi for a number of years, but that kind of image wasn't one she had seen before, and she had not been dreaming of seeing it. It made her feel sick. When Naruto suddenly appeared before her and picked her up with one hand, while the other grabbed her partner, she tensed slightly, but he just smiled at her before disappearing. He ran for about an hour nonstop and in great speed, despite the load he was carrying, and the fighting he had been doing. Once they were deep within the forest of the Fire Country, he stopped before placing her on the ground, her partner as well, and he too settled down against a tree trunk. "Why did we run?" Hana asked. "I sensed some powerful shinobi coming," Naruto responded, looking slightly tired. A tactical retreat was in order. The mission was done anyway, so there was no need to risk it. Hana nodded as she walked over to him. She knew the basics of medical ninjutsu, so she knelt down and had him hold out his right hand. It was then that she noticed how badly burnt his hand was. Not by the cut, but it was burns not from fire, but water. She didn't ask, but focused of trying to close his wound. Once she was done, she asked something that had been bothering her. Why didn't they notice me? I thought they would have when they surrounded me. When I picked you on our way, I placed a chakra suppression seal on you. I figured it would be necessary as I didn't want you to fight, and it would have been bothersome if you got caught, Naruto explained lightly. Hana blinked. I didn't sense it, she said. Had his hands moved so fast around her body that she couldn't feel anything. The word there should have been feel ben instead of sense then. Come on, Naruto said as he stood up. He held out his right hand and Hana took it. The redhead noted that she wasn't tense at being touched by him. Back then she had tensed when he took her up, and he was certain that it wasn't because he had caught her off guard, but because of what she had just seen. Hana followed her Naruto from behind as they traveled back to Konoha with her kin right next to her, but away from Naruto. Perhaps the dog had been barking furiously at the redhead, because it could sense the danger that she could not sense. She had been forming her thoughts about him based on what she was seeing. He certainly didn't look like the person she saw in the middle of a death field that just matched his hair in color when he wasn't fighting. Given how quickly you dispatched those, I am surprised that you chose to retreat though. Couldn't you have fought the coming wave as well? Hana asked curiously. Things may have happened quickly, but I use a lot of chakra, and I don't really like facing the unknown. Some battles you fight, and some you avoid for another day, Naruto responded calmly. As a shinobi you must know your limits, and always think about what will happen next. If I'd stayed and fight, I would have exhausted more chakra and wouldn't been able to carry you back. That would have put you at risk as you can't move as fast as me. Hana nodded in understanding. She glanced at the redhead, so this is why some call him Crimson Uzumaki. There were other names, and each fit in with the situation. Crimson Uzumaki fitted what she had just seen. Hana shook her head as the thoughts tickled her stomach. She buried them deep at the back of her head. This had been one hell of an experience. Konoha. Hokage office. Minato smiled seeing Hana back in one piece. She didn't look a bit disturbed even. That was a good sign. He really hoped that Naruto had held back on his merciless way of fighting against enemies. It had been a pain to hear some shinobi request to be assigned with other people other than Naruto after doing a couple of missions with him. Not everyone could stomach the brutal deaths Naruto gave to those he considered enemies. The Yondaime Hokage focused on Hana. I hope Naruto wasn't too much trouble, he said. Hana shook her head. He was a gentleman, she said to the Yondaime Hokage. Everything went okay, she said. Minato nodded. Go the office next door and collect your pay. Without you Naruto wouldn't have found the target, and the mission would have ended up in failure. Hana blinked at that. She was surprised because they had yet to give their report to the Hokage. So how did he know that Naruto had succeeded in the mission, and they had found the target? Did the two have some sort of a mental link, and could speak telepathically? Seeing the look on Hana's face, Minato spoke. We don't have anything fancy like that, he said as if he could read her mind. I just know that Naruto will succeed in any mission he is given unless there are some forces that are beyond his control. But if everything is up to him, he will succeed. Hana glanced at Naruto, who just looked indifferent. She shook her head slightly and focused on the Hokage once more. If you'll excuse me, Hokage-sama, she said with a small bow before turning around to leave. Once Hana was out of the office, Minato spoke in a serious tone. You may want to sit down for this, the Yondaime Hokage said, motioning for the redhead to take a seat. Naruto did as instructed, and before asking, something serious? The redhead asked, head tilted to the side. Minato nodded, his expression grim. You approved of a mission that was requested by the daimyo of the land of vegetables. Naruto nodded. The mission had required his approval because he was the one acting as the Uzumaki clan head, and the mission was requesting his clan's specialities. With his mother on the standby, he handled matters when he could, but he had yet to officially assume the role as clan head. Something about reaching age 18 first. Well, Minato stopped as he tried to find a way on how to go about things. He decided to just let it out as Naruto wasn't really a child anymore. The Uzumaki Sealing Corps was annihilated on their way back to the village by 2 members of the Akatsuki. We don't know who hired them, but I suspect it is Iwagakure. Sunigakure has had dealings with the group, but I doubt they would do anything like that. Naruto's eyes partially opened as he digested what his father was saying. The future looks bleak, he said after a few moments. Without the Sealing Corps, the clan loses its major contributor of income. Not only that, but this has literally stripped the clan of its power. It was now just him in the clan. His father was part of that clan because he had married into the clan, but there had been an agreement that he should focus on his duties as Hokage and the Uzumaki would handle their deals. Without the Sealing Corps, the clan was now exposed. There were just a handful of them remaining, and if this trend continued, the clan would really face extinction. You look calm, Minato said, but then he shook his head. When has Naruto actually let out a burst of emotions? Nothing much really moved the redhead these days, and to get a reaction from him really took much doing. This has led to some people say that he had no emotions. Drea is conducting an investigation to see who is really behind the attack. Once he concludes, I will leave the decision on what to do to you, Minato said. Naruto nodded. Is there anything else? Minato shook his head no, but don't forget to submit an official mission report, the Hokage said. I will get it done, the redhead said as he stood up. He then disappeared in swirl of flames. Minato leaned on his chair. This is going to be a little troublesome, he thought. Naruto was probably going to get drunk, and that meant that by tomorrow morning, he would be receiving some complaints. Grave site. Naruto was sitting at the site in front of a small stone with the 2 bottles of sake beside him. One was already empty and the other had yet to be opened. It was a regular scene when Naruto was this place, and each time he came, he always had a bottle with him. You're really embarrassing at times, Natsumura said as he walked towards the redhead. He wasn't coming to this stone, but had come here because he saw Naruto. The redhead never actually visited the stone of their former teammate and sensei. That is a first, Naruto said without turning to face the Jonin. I have never been accused of being an embarrassment. Well, at least to my face. When you do not smell like a brewery, you're fine, but when you're intoxicated, you become a completely different person. It doesn't really sweet you, Natsumura said. And I doubt most people would be willing to say something bad into your face. You don't have a reputation of being gentle, amongst shinobi at least. Natsumura shook his head. The redhead was really someone who appeared disciplined and well-mannered when he wasn't drunk. Really, you could say he was an exemplary shinobi on a good day, and treated people with a smile. But when drunk, he became something else, and that was the embarrassment, especially when it didn't suit him at all. Well, it can't be helped, I am a little crazy after all, Naruto said calmly. He took out a small sack of money and threw it at Natsumura, who caught this month's allowance. Sensei's family? Naruto nodded. You will have to face them, you know. They don't really resent you for what happened. Natsumura stressed firmly. Like you didn't blame me for it, Naruto said with a snort. If I remember correctly, you spent months cursing my name when you refused to face your own uselessness in battle. You don't have to remind me, Natsu said. And I have already apologized for my actions. I guess when things have gone awry and we don't want to admit a few things, we blame someone for it to comfort ourselves. I blamed you to get over the fact that I couldn't do anything but just watch while you fought. In any case, that is the past now, and I have grown from that. That is at least something pleasant, Naruto said indifferently. What is it this time? Another slaughter. Just trying to quiet down the demons singing inside my head. Naruto said calmly. They are little noisy this time around. the redhead said before trying to step up. He stumbled a bit and nearly fell, but Natsu caught him. You okay? Naruto nodded. A little migraine, he said. Natsu raised an eyebrow. When has a migraine been little? If he had said he was suffering from a minor headache, Natsu. Naruto, and shook his head. Nice talking to you, Natsu, the redhead said, slowly walking away. Iwagakure. Kuretsuchi walked into her grandfather's office to deliver the report of their latest mission. She may have lost some men, but she was happy that they had managed to find something that would be useful in the future. Iwagakure's future meant more to her before anything else. She would not hesitate to take actions that would weaken other villages. I take it the inevitable happened, Onoki said as Kuretsuchi walked towards his desk. The black-haired raised an eyebrow at the statement. What do you mean by that? Konoha has been conserving its shinobi forces. Anything that smells like a trap, they don't send normal forces, they either send Itachi or Naruto. If you come across one of the two, it's likely that the men you had were defeated, the Tsukikage said. He hadn't thought that those two could be defeated so easily. Onoki knew it would take more to defeat those two, but if it does happen, it would go a long way to weaken the Hidden Leaf. A weakened leaf village would be much easier to handle. Naruto appeared, Kuretsuchi said after a few moments of silence. Slaughtered everyone I had. Well, I'm not too shocked, that is how he conducts his business. I am a little disgusted though. Onoki stared at his granddaughter as he went over a few thoughts. You didn't fight. Kuretsuchi shook her head. I was just observing, waiting for the right moment. The bastard is deadly fast. Well, they don't call the second fastest man in Konoha behind the cursed Yondaime Hokage for nothing. I didn't get the chance to make a move. When the second wave appeared, the coward ran off without a word. Coward? Onoki asked in thought. I'd say it was the smart choice to make. You don't win many battles, as he has, by being stupid. Then what did you discover? His cursed jutsu, Kuretsuchi said, with a grin. It is Fuinjutsu based as we suspected. He uses special kunes to create a field of battle. Once the field is activated, it becomes his little field of vision and he can move freely at any place. With how fast he moves, I think it is teleportation, but it is still limited to field he has created. The flaw with it is that he only seems to sense things with chakra, and things that are touching the ground. I assume the seal is connected to his senses, and since he focuses too much on it, his other senses dull. A smoke bomb was thrown at him, and he didn't notice it until it had hit him. Also, he was also cut by someone while in air, but on the ground, you can't do that. We know that he always has a second layer of defense around himself when fighting, but it appears that when using that cursed jutsu, that defensive jutsu isn't usable. And when he uses those damn chains to create an execution ground, he diverts most of his chakra into the jutsu, and at the same time he leaves himself open to long-range attacks. Given everything we have seen, I'd say he is a short-range fighter. There is also a time limit to how long he can keep this field activated. To defeat him, we just have to stay clear out of his field. That will force him to step out of it, and then we hit him with long-range attacks. As I hate to say this, getting closer to him is a little suicidal when in that field. But now that we have discovered this, can we take him down? Onoki asked firmly. Could they defeat him? Kuretsuchi's smile slipped from her lips, and the confidence disappeared, leaving nothing behind to trace that it was ever there. She had been speaking confidently, ignoring the memory that had made her fearful. Something wrong? Onoki asked in his granddaughter's silence. When I look at his picture in the bingo book, I see a handsome young man. When I saw him in a person, I saw a beautiful shinobi walking with grace. He really didn't seem like what some people call him. You have always said that appearance can be deceiving, old man. You were right when it comes to that person. Appearances are deceiving. He is the personification of the concept. When he took into battle, I couldn't feel his power, no amount of bloodlust and no killing intent, yet he was slaughtering shinobi with precision and indifference. He looked still, cold, and just deathly silent. But when he got closer to me, I felt an ominous feeling that gripped my chest with fear. Kuretsuchi paused for a moment before speaking again. Forget my earlier regards about him being a coward. When he faced me, he said he had killed enough for one day. If that hadn't been the case, he might have fought. To answer your question, grandfather, I think this will make that curse jutsu ineffective, but defeating him, I don't really know. Later that day, Naruto was sitting in a dark corner, trying to intoxicate his body to stop his mind from giving into the demons that made his hands itch to the point where he just wanted to slaughter things. Yes, he was crazy in the head, but he calmed his nerves by stopping his mind from thinking clearly and cleanly. I knew I'd find you here, Anko said as she settled down beside the redhead, with Hana right beside her tail. Don't tell Kurena I saw you here. She'll kill me if she finds out. I didn't tell her so that she can come and fetch you. Naruto didn't respond. He looked at Hana with a raised brow, his eyes fully opened. I didn't know you also visited such dark corners. I don't, Hana said. This is just F for today. She said, sounding a little tipsy. You raped her mind today, Anko said, still managing to smile. You not drinking today? Anko shook her head. No, she said. I have things to do. I was coming to check out things when I found this amateur here. I just thought I'd bring here to you. You know, there are some sick bastards around here. If this one gets drunk, they will take advantage of her. And I won't. Anko snorted. You never make a move. Well, you don't have to. With your looks and reputation, women just throw themselves at you, and the nasty thing about you is that you don't turn them down. Drunk, you can hit a dog if it threw itself at you, Anko said with a shake of her head. This innocent girl won't do anything. She is too innocent after all. The following morning. Slap. That was what woke Naruto up in the morning, a cold slap straight into his face, not his cheek. The redhead abruptly woke up. He winced and closed his eyes as something much more painful than a slap on his face hit him, a major headache. How much had he drunk last night? Naruto opened his eyes and looked at the ruby eyes glaring at him. Kurena. That is a rather cold way to wake someone up, he said. What did I do? Kurena could not believe it. She was really tired of this kind of thing from Naruto. She could no longer deal with it. Was it always going to end up like this? Every after mission there was a girl waking up beside him? When was he going to control himself, and just say no? Every girl that throws at him, he indulges. He never says no, even if it is more than one. Just hearing him ask her what he had done infuriated her. She really wished she had his ability to control fire at free will. She could make him burn just looking at him. It would make her a little happy seeing him slowly burn in the flames he loves so much. Kurena pointed at the side of the bed without saying a word. Naruto turned around and saw a black-haired sound sleep. Oh, that was the reaction he could give at the scene and the fact that Kurena had basically caught him red-handed. Well, that explains why you hit me. He turned to face Kurena once more. Is that all you are going to say, Naruto? Kurena asked dangerously. My friends are off limits. I understand Anko waking up in your bed. I understand women taking advantage of you and raping you, but Hana? She is a sweet young lady, Naruto. Do you know how much this is going to destroy her? She was innocent, Naruto. Naruto got up from the bed and realized that it wasn't his place. He didn't mind his nudity as he looked for his clothes. Kurena just hit him on the face with the clothes. Thank you, Naruto said. I don't quite remember dragging her here. Since this isn't my place, it is safe to say that she brought me here. I don't see the need for me to be blamed. Slap. Kurena slapped the redhead once again. The only reason she got drunk is because of you. The ruby-eyed woman shouted, pointing at him. Naruto blinked. I see, he said. But he lacked the emotion within him to say the right words. Kurena wasn't even baffled by his lack of emotions. It was to be expected. She has known him for a while now. It didn't really surprise her. Yet it frustrated her. The black-haired woman sighed in frustration before speaking. When are you going to handle your problems like a normal person, Naruto? You know, if you'd learned to change, we'd still be together. I don't think I will reconsider my choice now. Anko, and now Hana, who is next, Yugao. Although his eyes displayed no emotion, Naruto's lips curled into a tiny sad smile. Someone else wouldn't notice it, but Kurena had seen it too often to miss it. You make it sound as if I am actively pursuing your friends, Kurena, the redhead said in a quiet tone. I know you're not, but it doesn't change what I have to see and hear, Kurena said. You should leave before she wakes up, and I think it will be best if you stay away from her and me. Naruto stared at Kurena for a few moments and closed his eyes, and put on an expressionless mask as he responded. I see, he said before walking away. Uzumaki compound. Naruto was taking his medicine within his own study at the main house when not handling clan matters. He did spend some time here, and when not busy with anything he retreated to his apartment to get some alone time. You're home, Izumi said as walked into the study. I looked for you at the apartment, but didn't find you. Another night in the streets? No, Naruto said with a shake of his head. But another drunk night, Izumi said with a shake of her head. Naruto was the type of person who'd get raped, and wouldn't have nightmares over it. Well, he does often admit that he has loose screws inside his head, and Izumi didn't deny any of that. It was true after all. At least he handled clan matters seriously. I figured you'd be out when your father told me about what happened, Izumi said, settling down in front of the desk within the study. She handed the blonde a bottle of pills. Delivered from Kirigakure. You don't have to get drunk and do despicable things. Take one of those and they will knock you out cold. You won't dream anything. Naruto stared at the small bottle for a moment before pocketing. Thanks, he said. Kurena might be a little mad at me, he said before shaking his head. What is my mother saying about this Akatsuki problem? She said she was leaving it to your hands, Izumi said. She isn't even worried about our dire financial situation. That woman can be a bit careless sometimes, Naruto said with a shake of his head. How are you dealing with it though? I am infuriated. Whoever hired those dogs will pay one day, and I mean dearly, Naruto responded calmly, as if he wasn't mad as he was saying he was. The other clans know by now, and I think we'll be getting a few mock condolences. Well, without the Sealing Corps, our clan has taken a suicidal dive off a cliff, Izumi stated bluntly. The orphanage, support program, and the academy consume large portions of our funds. And with how things are, it won't be long before we hit rock bottom. Yoshino was insistent on creating a grade A academy that would produce the best of students. Since the clan operated its small academy, it meant that all costs burdened the clan. The academy was highly successful though. It was named the prestigious academy within the village, and if it wasn't because the academy hosted orphans, rich parents would be sending their children into the academy. Maybe we should expand the academy to accommodate other children from around the village. I mean, if we are able to build another academy with the same teaching standards as the one we have in the compound, we could market for villagers to send their children into our academy. Everyone almost agrees that the current shinobi academy within the village is useless. We could make some money with it. Naruto thought of it for a few moments. The village would have to accredit it, but that could work. I assume other clan heads would have to agree to it, the redhead said in thought. We may even have to adopt some people into the clan to keep it from going extinct. There are just about 8 young people, and the others are old. Not thinking about birth. What awaits them is just death. Can you be a little grim when you go about it? Izumi asked. When are you going to marry? Have no such plans. I have only shown interest in one woman and she dumped. Aside from her, I have no interest in fooling around, Naruto said with indifference. Should you really be saying that? You of all people? Izumi asked with a look on her face. Yes, Naruto said. This is me, and that drunk is another person who comes out to ease my burdens. If I enjoyed that kind of life, I'd be partaking in it every day of my life. In any case, you ask me about marriage, what about you? What about me? You're a delightful person, beautifully enchanting, Don't tell me you don't have any love letters coming your way, Naruto said with his eyes partially opened, a flat smile on his lips. Naruto-sama, Azumi said. I am not worried about the influence of the clan, even if the sealing core is no more and it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that the Yondaime Hokage is part of the clan. Do you know why? Naruto just stared. It is because we have you. Your other activities may have damaged your image with most of the civilians that they prefer Itachi over you, but they still respect your power. The shinobi population would never dare anything against you, they fear and respect you. I am your right hand, and of course your bloody shadow will fall over me. What does that have to do with anything? People are scared to come near me, Azumi said. People trust you for sure, but they know there are lines that must never be crossed with you. I am yours, and no one would want to take that away, if they value their lives. Naruto just shook his head. I have never threatened anyone in this village, the redhead said. People just make conclusions based on what they hear. This isn't that important anyway. I won't be here tomorrow. Send my love to my sister. Where are you going? Mission, I will ask one from the Hokage and leave early tomorrow. For now, I am going to rest. With Itachi? Damn it. A shinobi shouted, with a group of shinobi behind him. Retreat. Itachi deactivated his Susanoo as his enemies scattered around, making a way for it. The Uchiha wasn't going to pursue them, as there was no need for him to do so. He just had to drive them off the goods that he was protecting, and that would be his mission complete. Well, not until the goods reached their destination, but without annoyances along the way, he would get there. The Mangekyo Sharingan was really feared amongst the shinobi. Well, Itachi would also be cautious around the dojutsu that needed just one look to take you out of the game. A single mistake in battle against someone like him, and it was all over. I'm getting a little jealous of you, Jiraiya suddenly, standing a distance away. I mean, these days you don't get to fight those many battles. When they see it's Itachi, they run. More so than they do when seeing Naruto. Well, unless they do engage him, prepare to die. Respect was now being given to the young ones, and he, a Sannin, was now seen as a relic of the past. But of course that didn't mean that smart shinobi would willingly challenge him. Perhaps it was different with someone like Naruto because the redhead slaughtered his enemies, unlike him who sometimes lets them live to fight another day. What are you doing here, Jiraiya-sama? Itachi asked, not bothering to respond to the Sannin's earlier words. There was no point in indulging in them, was there? A week ago the Uzumaki sealing core was wiped out by the Akatsuki. I just recently sent the report to Konoha. As I was busy trying to find out who hired them, I came across the members of the group. Jiraiya paused, organizing his thoughts. They told me that they were hired by the Tsukikage. Itachi narrowed his eyes slightly. They just told you like that? He stated. Jiraiya nodded. I didn't even ask them. Once they confirmed it was me, and that I knew about their recent activities, they told me. It was as if they had been looking for me just to tell me about it. Do you have reason to doubt this information? Jiraiya shook his head. Iwagakure has used the group before. This is hardly a surprise. They were also involved in the original attack against the Uzumaki. I don't know what Naruto will do when he does hear about this. He can be quite vengeful. Itachi didn't deny it, he knew Naruto all too well after all. Naruto may have some screw loose, but I don't think he will do anything. When not feeling the effects of alcohol, he thinks responsibly. He takes his responsibilities seriously. If Itachi was saying that Naruto would not take any drastic measures, then Jiraiya was going to go with it. He is really a well-mannered and disciplined person who commands respect on his day. But when on the battlefield, he becomes something else that even scares me, and to think we have yet to even see his full power, the Sannin said of the redhead. In any case, I think that this is a first step of trying to weaken Konoha. From what I have been able to gather, Uchiha's may also be attacked as well. Once they have weakened us enough, they will attack, Itachi concluded. I dislike war, but in this case, I think a war is the best thing that can happen to the current situation in the elemental nations. Likely, and we have to win that war, Drea said firmly. I just thought I inform you about this. Warn your father about it as well. The Sannin then disappeared in a burst of smoke. Clone. Konoha. Mikoto looked at the sleeping redhead with a small beautiful smile on her face. He looked so peaceful when was sleeping. She wouldn't go as far as to say that he looked like an angel when sleeping, that would be a serious crime against angels. The redhead was more of demon than anything. His pleasant smiles didn't fool her. At least he did have a real smile. Mikoto leaned over, staring at the clean face that was truly well taken off. Naruto did care about his appearances after all. Naruto's eyes opened, slightly feeling a warm breath hitting his face. You'd think he was still asleep with how partially his eyes were opened. The black-haired woman merely smiled, but did not make the distance with Naruto's face. Good evening, Naruto. She greeted. Mikoto, Naruto said. What do you think Itachi will say if he finds you this close? He asked. Mikoto merely shrugged as she made the distance for Naruto to get up from the couch and sit up straight. He'd probably just act like he saw nothing, she said. You'd think he is emotionally crippled sometimes, she added with a shake of her head. That is your son you're talking about. Naruto reminded the woman. His partially opened eyes went towards the clock on the right side of the wall. Evening already? How long had he slept? Well, being cooped up in here, he did manage to avoid unnecessary talks with what happened this morning. He would still stay away by taking missions after missions. Shouldn't you be preparing dinner for your husband? Naruto asked, his eyes still at the time. Mikoto shrugged, I have prepared what Sasuke needs. She said. Fugaku was asking about you and sent me to check on you. You're hardly at the compound these days. I dislike his lectures, Naruto said indifferently. In any case, when I am needed I do go there. He shouldn't have any reasons to complain. It's not like I have terminated my relationship with him anyway. I still get along with you and Itachi. That may be true, but when you think about past memories, you start seeing the difference, she said, standing up. Azumi told me you were here, so I brought you something to eat. Itachi counted. I figured since he will be returning later on from his mission, he will spend the night here. Thanks, Naruto said with a smile. I don't think I have eaten anything since morning. Watch out for your health, Mikoto said, handing Naruto her right hand. The redhead took it, and she helped him on his feet. You feel light, she noted. Walk me back to home. It's late. Naruto nodded, figuring the woman wanted to speak to him. He followed her towards the exit, and when they stepped out, Itachi was walking towards the apartment. Excellent timing, Naruto said to the Uchiha. Itachi just glanced at Naruto for a moment before looking at his mother. Mother, he greeted her. Itachi, Mikoto said, with a smile. Glad you're back in one piece. A mother always worries when her son goes out to face dangerous situations, she said, taking Naruto's hand. I'll see you home tomorrow. Itachi nodded. Heat up the food. We'll eat when I return, Naruto said to the Uchiha. Minutes later. Itachi looked at Naruto curiously as the redhead walked towards the kitchen. Naruto was a lot closer to Mikoto than he was with Kushina. Mind you, the latter was his mother. Itachi had never really dug deep into the relationship between Naruto and his mother. They had always had some connection he could not understand when Naruto was still a brat. Not to mention his mother was one of the handful of people Naruto genuinely cared for. I met up with Drea and he told me what happened, Itachi said. Naruto didn't respond. He prepared his plate and went on to sit across the Uchiha before digging in on the food. Your clan has taken quite the knock, I know, but it is still a prestigious family that is well loved by the villagers. A different thing from the past, when the people used to hate the clan for using the Kyubi. Itachi could see why Yoshino had called the shots even though Kushina was the clan head. The old woman had taken in orphans into the clan and built a prestigious academy that was envied by other clans. She pushed all the responsibility towards Naruto. The redhead was forced to work tirelessly to ensure that the people being looked after by the clan were fed and were taken care of. Perhaps she had done it to teach Naruto some responsibility, and to try to give something to care about. Either way, the good deeds of the clan hadn't gone unnoticed, especially when Naruto came to the rise. The clan had gained a new light, and was respected by the villagers. Prestigious, yes, but our powers are fading. I'm the only holding it together now, the redhead said. Well, this works well for me anyway. Itachi shook his head. How displeased are you about the situation? Immensely, Naruto said calmly. What is there to talk about? This kind of subject is making me a little ticked off. I would rather not think too deeply about it. That's it for this part. If you enjoyed it, then like, share and subscribe for the next video, as it's going to be more interesting, and also check out the other playlist. Hope you would like them too.